Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto beat Sasuke at the Kage Summit. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by Airheaded dude and link in the description and support writer. Let's start the video. Chapter 1. The Selection. As it was foretold. The elder sage of Myabakuzen said in his shaking voice, holding within his hand the crystal ball to see the events that had occurred. Gamabunta sat in front of the elder sage and watched the events unfold. His injuries aching his gigantic body forced him to be summoned out of Konoha. The battle with pain was made into a full battle of attrition against Naruto, who in the end succeeded by finishing the fight with God Realm with a slew of backup plans. Though it is unthinkable that Jiraiya's two apprentices were the chosen of this prophecy, the change and revolution of the ninja world. The crystal ball, willed by the elder sage, zoomed in on Naruto's hand that held the first book that Jiraiya ever made. The elder sage then said, "That book really is the key to change for a prosperous future." Gamabunta wordlessly looked onto the crystal ball as he viewed the features of young Naruto. The image of the fourth Hokage took over his vision. With a wipe from one of his forearms, Gamabunta then said. "The kid is making me remind of the fourth. It's through this brat that everything will change. I'm honored to have been of service to this brat." The elder sage commented, maybe this was all meant to be, from the time Jiraiya decided to never give up. The sounds of rushing water were the only things that could be heard in the great structure of Myabakuzen that day. Konoha. Gido Rin Tensei no Jutsu. Outer Path. Samsara of Heavenly Life Technique, Nagato shouted, his chakra pouring out of his body. His remaining life force going to the jutsu he had created. He said to Naruto. "I believe in you and you, I can see a bright future, thank you Naruto. You made me remind myself of my youth, my idealism. I'll put my faith in you as Yahiko and Sensei did to me. With this, the deed is done." In the midst of Pain's parting speech, a giant creature, with its concentric eyes of the Rinnegan, sprouted forth from the ground zero of Pain's Shinra Tensei, divine subjugation of the omnipresent god, with its mark of king on its forehead. It undid the strings that covered of its gaping mouth, releasing countless souls of the people venturing in the twilight of life and death. In the false tree, Nagato said as his shivering hands reached out to the blonde, "Just one more time let me put my faith back to true peace, one more time let me dream that beautiful dream." Nagato slowly began to lose his consciousness. Naruto caught him by the arms, a sullen expression written all over his face. "Nagato." Konan remained silent as she closed her eyes, as Nagato had started breathing his last. "What did Nagato do?" Naruto asked, as Nagato was starting his heavy breathing. Nagato is the seventh pain, he is able to control life and death. For he who controls the Rinnegan is above the cycle of life and death. Nagato looked upwards, the false tree starting to disperse. "At least let me do this, for the people that I have killed in this village. This is my payment to you, thank you Uzumaki Naruto, I can rest easy, my dream, Yahiko's dream we will give to you, my role is over now." With that, Nagato silently paused, slowly succumbing to the merciful embrace of death. No longer shall he suffer the pains of his past, haunting him in his very soul, freed from his drive and obsession. "I promise you, Nagato, I'll be the one to break this curse, believe in me." Naruto uttered, closing his eyes, a lone tear flows from his left eye, signaling his sorrow. If only it weren't for Danzo and Madara, all this pain and madness wouldn't have happened. It was in this moment he had understood what Jiraiya finally wanted for him to have. "If I can't be the one to be that person to bring peace to the world, if I can't find that answer, Naruto, you'll be the one to do it for me." "You bet." Naruto stood up, holding in his hand in a firm grip the first book that Jiraiya had written. Konan wrapped Nagato's body with her paper. She looked on as Naruto followed her. Looking to the place where Naruto had defeated Tendu, Heaven Path God Realm, Pain. She arrived, silent as the angel of God that she was portrayed to be, gentle and comforting, with a flick of her hand, countless papers wrapped around the form of the body of God Realm. Naruto asked. "You're taking this body too?" Konan replied, "This is the body used to be God Realm, this was Yahiko, he was someone very dear to us." She looked back as the countless papers surrounded the Yahiko's corpse. "War brings death, wounds and pain to both sides, there is nothing harder to accept than the death of those that you love, your generation that hasn't known war. Try to find meaning in death only to be left with pain and hatred that you don't know what to do with. Dying like trash, never-ending hatred that is war. This is what you must face." Naruto, the book that Nagato so held dearly, and you, it was as if it was the workings of the true god. Naruto not once looked over to the woman as he looked down, "Are you going back to Akatsuki?" "I am done with Akatsuki, Yahiko and Nagato were everything to me, they've entrusted their dreams to you, Nagato believed in you, so I'll do the same. A Megakure will help you any way it can." Naruto wordlessly looked at the corpses of his fellow pupils and touched them. "I'll be the person to end all of this tragedy, it's what my master and fellow pupils had given me." You've taught me to be a stronger person, I promise. I'll do everything I can. Konan raised her right arm and papers began swirling around her hand, folding and forming a bouquet of paper roses. The blue-haired girl handed it over to Naruto and said. This time I hope for you that these flowers of hope never die. Naruto merely smiled and accepted the gift as he reached out for it with both his hands and held it tight. The memory of his former master crossed his mind. Oh? That's pretty good, Naruto? How about we go out tonight and celebrate with ice cream? Alright. Thanks, Hiro-senin. Hey Naruto. I got the best view on the house here. Want to take a look? You serious? What if we get caught? Ah, you worry over the little stuff like that and you'll grow up to be such a prude like Tsunade. No way. Hiro-senin. I got a new idea for a jutsu. Want to see? Oh, really? Well, let's see it then. That was great, Naruto. You really are my most favorite apprentice. Hahaha. Now I've got an idea for my next book. How about you write a chapter here for me? Sure. Hey, Hiro-senin, did you know you're like the grandfather I never had? What's with this all of a sudden? And no matter how you say it, I'll always be proud of my apprentice. Thanks, Hiro-senin. Memories of his master crossed his mind as he slowly formed a smile and tears fell like rivers cascading down his whiskered cheeks. He turned his back from the view that he last saw Konan and walked back to the village that was laid in ruins. Within his hands, he held the paper roses that Konan had given him and the memento of his master. Just watch me, you perverted hermit. I'll make your dreams a reality. He jumped up, his optimism showed forth like the radiant sun. Kakashi. In the period of talking with his father in limbo, Kakashi realized that he felt his chest a little lighter, his back broader, as if a weight on his shoulder was lifted. His father had talked to him so casually and so normally in front of the only light within that darkness, that small campfire that his father had waited on for years since his death. Thanks to their talk, Tsukumo was able to go meet his wife finally. The shame that Kakashi had shown in years of his childhood was no longer there, only acceptance. With renewed strength, Kakashi went searching for his student that defeated pain. Going through the forest, he saw Naruto, tired and fatigued that he was, an image that wasn't always present. Within his hands were a bouquet of paper roses and a small book. Naruto staggered, feeling the weight of his exhaustion taking over. He fell down. But was caught by Kakashi, who only said, "Good work." Surprised, Naruto shouted to the teacher. "Kakashi-sensei. Save your breath and hold on. We're going back to the village." As soon as the village came into view, literally thousands upon thousands of the villagers and ninja were all there to meet him. "Welcome back. We believed in you. Thank you." Words of gratitude and awe were shouted from the joyous villagers, and children began rushing towards him, pushing and shoving to get close to the person that had saved them and caused a miracle within the village. "They've all been waiting for your return," Kakashi mentioned, and the small slug that had been with Naruto, a part of Katsaya, said. "I told them everything that had happened. They've been waiting for you all this time." A shard of memory had hit Kakashi's mind. "My dream is to one day become Hokage and for everyone to acknowledge my existence." In the background, Haruka recalled the moment when Naruto was when he was a child and to the moment that he had been embraced by the village. A smile had escaped his lips that turned into a full-blown grin, tears of joy overwhelming the teacher. As everyone cheered, certain people seemed to have been approached by the Anbu. This went unnoticed to several of the crowd. Narushikaku, who was one of the people that were approached, asked the masked ninja, "What is it?" "You are to report to the council room immediately." Shikaku frowned and lowered his head and asked, "Already?" Kakashi looked on in aloofness. Naruto whispered to him. "Take me to the council room immediately, sensei. It's time I put a stop to Danzo's underground operations." Kakashi looked incredulous. Did Naruto obtain very sensitive information about Root? And why was he requesting one of the elder toads to accompany him and carry one of their scroll lists for active toads? "This wouldn't have happened if I was called back sooner, and the timing of the whole thing, it doesn't add up, sensei. I know I may not notice the simple things back then, but thanks to my training in Senjutsu, sage arts, I've been more particular. Please sensei, just this once." Kakashi nodded. Naruto was determined, and that looked like something that will remain there until he got what he want. Far in the village outskirts, an oversized-looking Venus flytrap emerged from the thick branch of one of the gigantic trees surrounding the village. "I never thought pain could be defeated like this. I must report this immediately," Zetsu said, as he observed the blonde Jinchuriki being escorted away with the infamous copy ninja Kakashi. "Madara must take note of this." With that, he sunk into the trunk again, his Kajero, Mayfly, taking effect, traveling at the speed of sound. The council room. The council room looked tense. Everyone was facing a hard time ahead. Pain's assault on Konoha did more damage than it should have. "We plan on continuing with other countries to counter the threat posed by Akatsuki," Hamura mentioned, making clear his intentions on the matter at hand. Being the remaining village with a Jinchuriki, it was more likely that they will target Konoha again. The one from the financing department in the Land of Fire said, after what's happened to the village, the Land of Fire will do anything it can into getting Konoha rebuilt, but first we need to set up a considerable amount of budget and then take into account the strain on the other countries as well. Danzo in particular raised his head and showed his uncovered eye, gleaming in the sunlight. There are other important issues to be discussed, such as who will be the next Hokage. All of the people in the room remained silent, the Fire Lord said, couldn't we just wait for Tsunade to awaken? I am sure the matter will fix itself eventually. The Haru had voiced her opinion, my lord, Tsunade is still in a coma, we can't decide on a plan for the village when she will wake up. Besides, the destruction of Konoha was partially her fault. The Fire Lord sighed as he leaned back into his seat, fanning himself, I choose Jiraiya, I liked him, but he's gone now. Seeing Danzo was about to speak, Shikaku intervened, clearly seeing the schemes of the old warhawk. I nominate Hada Kakashi. The Fire Lord seemed impressed. Oh ho, the son of the White Fang eh? Why not? What do all of you think? Murmurs and whispers went around the council chambers talking about the situation. He's well known, strong and respected, that's true, but he's very young. Minato was even younger. The councilman asked Shikaku, who was his teacher. Shikaku replied in a calm demeanor, everything was swaying in his favor. Beyond aim Hokage. The Fire Daimyo seemed impressed again, Kakashi, who was taught by the 4th Hokage, taught by Jiraiya, and taught by the Sandaime, it is a fine selection. The old noble added with a smile. The 3rd Hokage's teachings have as good as destroyed the village. The leader of Akatsuki, Pain, was once Jiraiya's pupil. Everyone turned to Danzo who seemed to have opposed the idea, but before he could make headway, it was then that he was cut off. The Sandaime was never wrong in his teachings. It was then that Naruto appeared from the entrance of the door and within his hands was a scroll along with the Fukasaku resting on his shoulders. He looked at Danzo in contempt and said. You were responsible for this Danzo, and I would be damned if you were to become Hokage. You were the one that let Pain roam free in Konoha. You and Hanzo were the ones that created him. You are in part to blame on Nagato turning what he was. Everyone seemed quiet at that, Himura and Kaharu stood up and elder woman said. Uzumaki Naruto, you are not permitted to enter the council room, this can be considered an act of insubordination. Naruto stood firm, outside, Kakashi leaned on the door so that no one would enter. To his right was Yamato nervously waiting for one of his charges inside, it was like dipping your toe on boiling water, such a risky move would get them severely punished if Danzo ever did turn into Hokage. Have faith in your subordinate, Yamato. I did and I know what he's doing is the right thing. If only those simple words would be enough to encourage him. Inside, Naruto spoke. Where did you get information about Pain being my sensei's pupil? As far as I can tell, only the Sannin knew of it. You've dug your own grave, Danzo. You've involuntarily suggested about your involvement with Omegakure's affairs, more specifically, with Hanzo of the Salamander. It was because of you that Nagato became the leader of Akatsuki by killing his friend, Yahiko. You thought that their movement in Omegakure was a threat on its own, without even considering that we should not interfere in political affairs that do not concern us. Shikaku seemed to grin as he held his head down, Naruto had a point. It seemed now was time to back up the child. That's true, what happened in Kiri is an example, we do not intervene in actions that concern internal affairs of a country that is outside our jurisdiction, which is almost every country not the Land of Fire. Do you have any explanation on this, Danzo? Shikaku asked. Proof, Danzo mentioned and then continued. Where's your proof, child? Naruto looked at the man in a heartbeat and said, the citizens of Konoha that were revived just earlier. During my fight with him, he told me that his organization back then only wanted to have peace talks with Hanzo. But you coaxed him, Danzo, coaxed Hanzo of the Salamander to suppress the movement. Because of this, Nagato, who was stricken with grief, was tricked into making Akatsuki, a terrorist organization that went and gathered all the Jinchuriki and Bijuu that roamed. How are the citizens concerned with this? Homura asked. Nagato, who held the Rinnegan, had an ability to revive the people that have died in a short amount of time. I convinced him to stop his actions and understand that Jiraiya's teachings weren't just idealistic. It was then he gave me the reason to why he would go so much as far as destroy Konoha. All because Danzo aided Hanzo in putting down Yahiko and Nagato's faction. The Fire Lord raised an eyebrow at this and said, well now, those are pretty strong allegations, it seems we can't turn Danzo into Hokage, for it will cause such a public outrage if word of your involvement gets out. To this Danzo sat back into his seat. Shikaku smiled as he leaned back and let the progress of a new Hokage take place. You were also responsible in delaying my return, Danzo team. Naruto mentioned, his frown forming deeper. With my delay, Pain was free to do as he pleased, he terrorized and killed many of our troops, those that didn't know my whereabouts back then were incapacitated or even killed. Did you know how many lives could have ended then? I know you've been hungering for power for years. Tsunade explained to me your reasons why you still run route. And how she fervently opposed any idea and suggestion you had given. This proof shall be all that's needed. He raised a crystal ball to Fukasaku's hands, and the small toad held it firmly with his tiny hands. Little Jiraiya explained to me once that the Hokage's office is filled with seals that the Hokage installed without anyone's knowledge other than his own and with little Jiraiya's. He said to me that the seals were there to record in the crystal ball the events that occur whenever the Hokage was not around. The trigger of that seal would be the seal etched onto every Hokage that set foot in that office, through their clothing or otherwise. It was then that Naruto unfurled the gigantic scroll, and in it was the list of the active toads that reside in Miyabakizan. When we left the village to train Naruto, we left here with a summoner toad to send Naruto back to the village if ever he was needed. If one of ours were killed, their names would be erased from the active scroll. This is what happened in the events that Pain started his invasion of Konoha. They saw a picture of Danzo. His back turned from the viewers and saw that the man stabbed the summoning toad with a tanto. Amura and Kaharu looked at each other and then to the Fire Lord, who frowned. Quite. It seemed that the reason why Naruto was sent back later than expected was indeed Danzo. Even if Naruto weren't to return, Pain would have attacked nonetheless. I think I may have an idea of who is to become the next Hokage. In that very moment, the wheels of fate began turning again, its gears shifting to start an event that will be remembered for all of the people of Konoha. Unknown location. So Pain was defeated, huh? Madara asked. Zetsu answered with a nod. End of the Hokage. Zetsu answered, they're still determining who it's going to be. Though it would most likely be Danzo based on speculation. Madara's eye gleamed at that. It seemed like the perfect opportunity to start his plan. Conan is not coming back. We need another pawn to sync with Jito-Meizo, demonic statue of the outer realm. Tobi remained silent for a moment, contemplating his next move. He then looked at Kisame and said. Kisame, you go after the eight-tailed beast. I've got matters to attend to. Zetsu, make sure to monitor the events in Konoha, confirm that Danzo is indeed the Hokage. Come with me when you're done. When Tobi had received word that the 5 Kage Summit would take place in Kurigane no Kuni, he began to worry about the measures that the 5 major countries that would impose sanctions and interventions against Akatsuki. Their movement would be smaller than what it was before, not that it would be a problem for him. All he needed were the remaining 2 Biju that still roamed the earth, but with Naruto defeating his greatest piece on the board, Madara was adamant about letting one of his members get him now, and with Konoha very aware and assigned task forces against the organization, Madara would eventually be forced to start from scratch. The sounds of footsteps could only be heard as Kisame exited the small cave that housed the Jito-Meizo. What will it be now, Tobi? Asked Zetsu. Madara merely said. Leave everything to me. Said the man as a spiral contortion happened in front of him. The space seemed to bend and fold as Madara was sent in a spiral motion in a single point, like rushing water down the drain. The world will turn at this very single point. For it will embark on something much, much more grand. Konoha. What? Naruto asked, flabbergasted, as the Fire Lord patted on his shoulder and said. As the student of both Jiraiya and Kakashi and the one responsible in defeating the leader of Akatsuki, I appoint you Uzumaki Naruto as the Rakudame Hokage. Naruto seemed in shock at this. Why me? You have proven that you are strong and the villagers love you, you have the charisma and strength, you're perfect for the job. Said the Fire Lord. Everyone around, except for Shikaku, seemed unsure of this. My lord, you are giving a job of great importance to a child. But this is unheard of. Asked Kaharu. Wind Country has done the same, has it not? There were also rumors that this boy is responsible for the countless allegiances we have been receiving as of late, not to mention he is the child of Namikaze Minato. It would be great for Uzumaki-san to rise in this world as a political figurehead. He's already on a level that rivals Jiraiya. An S-class warrior of one so young is hard to come by. The Fire Lord countered in a sagely manner. Most of the members seemed to nod at this. But I'm still a genin. And the appointment of Kage needs not to be ranked. Chunin can become Hokage, why can't genin for that matter? It is all about discernment, child. With that, the Fire Lord stood up. Naruto remained silent. Will you accept, Uzumaki Naruto? Or should we call you, Hokage-sama? Asked a Fire Lord. Naruto still stood and contemplated the situation. The moment he would extend his arm, he will become Hokage, the strongest of Konohagakure, the ideal figure of a shinobi. But if this is what needed to protect the people, then so be it. The Fire Lord smiled and Naruto remained silent. I just want one thing in 5 days, announce my succession in 5 days, I still have unfinished business to take care of. Fukasaku-sensei, I wish to learn about Fuinjutsu, can I master it in a span of 5 days? Fukasaku closed his eyes and gave his answer, that depends on you, Naruto-chan, but I'm sure with the method of using Kakashi's training, you would be done by then. Good, then I'll see all of you in 5 days. Naruto was about to exit, but he was stopped by Koharu and Homura. Hokage-sama, with the time needed for reconstruction and repairs, we need your authorization to allow a construction company and the emergency provisions. There's a friend of mine from Wave that happens to own a construction company, send for them, emergency provisions should be easy enough to obtain from Spring Country, just mention to them my name, and they will comply. Naruto answered as he went out, the Fire Lord smiled further. The great Hokage indeed. Outside, Kakashi stepped back and kneeled in front of Naruto, the blonde had a sweat drop at the back of his head and sighed. Hokage-sama. Both Kakashi and Yamato replied, Naruto seemed uncomfortable with the title yet. Kakashi-sensei, I'll be going out for 5 days as you have probably heard, I want you to oversee the construction and repairs with Yamato Taichu. I won't be here. I'll be going back to training with Fukasaku-sensei and Miyabaki-san. Also, I trust the two of you, Danzo may have a trick up his sleeve, make sure you guard the summoning frog that will be left here. I don't want things like Pain's invasion happening again. With that, the three walked away from the council chambers. Danzo looked below in disdain and sighed, another defeat from Sarutobi, as the dejected old leader steps away, his plans to take over the seat already going through his mind again. Naruto seemed fazed by this decision of the Fire Lord to appoint him as the new Hokage, it was an unbelievable dream to start with, and one being so young, only 16 years old and he became Hokage. How old was his father when he was appointed to take the seat? It was then that in front of him, 3 Kumo shinobi had appeared. We want to know where the Hokage is, can you take us to him? The one with the blonde hair and buxom chest replied. Yamato looked Naruto and Kakashi doing the same, the blonde turned his head to both his teachers and sighed. Let's go talk about this in the office, Fukasaku is waiting for me, Kakashi-sensei, Yamato-sensei, please escort these three to the Hokage's office, make sure they are not seen by any of the Hyuga. Naruto requested both Kakashi and Yamato replied. Don't be so formal about us now, Hokage-sama you are now our superior, and as such please treat us as your subordinates. The two saluted and Naruto sighed again dropping his head. I'm never going to get used to that. Uttered the blonde as he waved his hand and went home to gather his things. The 3 Kumo-nin looked at each other and then back to the teenage blonde. So he's the Hokage? Asked the only male in the group, Kakashi answered, newly instated. He's the one responsible in defeating Akatsuki's leader, Pain. You're serious? Asked Carrie surprised by it, what kind of self-respecting Hokage wears orange? You're probably wondering, what kind of self-respecting Hokage wears orange? Right. Kakashi asked, Carrie looked surprised at the aloof Jounin, did he read her mind like that? Well, like we said, he's newly instated, but he'll be wearing different clothes when he gets back. Yamato replied. With that, the two Jounin escorted them to the Hokage's office. Naruto. It took him only 10 minutes to prepare his gear to what would be another training trip. The chance that had been given to him to become Hokage, he accepted it. Knowing full well on what might happen, he might not be able to get out of the village as much as he used to, but when he saw the destruction of his village then, he knew what he had to do, and the promise he had kept to Nagato lingered on his mind. If he would be the one to break this curse, then this was the most golden opportunity he could have ever hoped for. He was met with his senjutsu teacher outside his apartment, Fukasaku patiently waiting on his home, with some clothes on his hands. Here's a replacement Haori that Shima made, she came by earlier and asked if you wear a new set of clothing. She said that wearing such ghastly colors is not proper for a Hokage. Naruto was about to retort and ask what was wrong about orange, but he was shoved back inside his room with a Haori and another set of clothes. A few minutes later, Naruto went out wearing the standard Konoha uniform, but instead of the navy blue long-sleeve undershirt, he was wearing black under the green flak jacket. Naruto wore his Haori, and a gold chain interlocked from one side of the base of the neck of the ceremonial piece of cloth to the other. Naruto looked down on his uniform, a grin was forming on his lips. Wow, I look great in this. Said the blonde, viewing the red Haori with the black flame design at the hem and the holes that opened above his elbows. Naruto then untied the headband from his head and instead tied it around his neck, the long black cloth dangling on his back. His hair going down to his forehead and face. Fukasaku smiled and said, a spitting image of your father. Naruto smiled at that, all the while his left hand going to the back of his head scratching it, he felt proud and embarrassed at the same time. Now let's address those that needed to be addressed, Hokage-sama. Fukasaku teased. Naruto groaned as he said to the elder toad, not you too, Fukasaku-sensei. The elder toad merely gave a hearty laugh. The era of change was about to occur, he thought, and he could see such hopeful future in Naruto. He hoped that he gets to see it before his time, which he most certainly will, for his part in the affairs of the world is done, and the only remaining thing to do would be to polish an already sharpened blade. Naruto had already grown into such a fine young man and grew plenty from his life. It was time that he lead his peers and call the shots. Naruto may be young, but in his heart and soul lies the aspect of a true leader, one who would put the interest of the people first, one who could convince people to move mountains, one who could make people believe in him. The Fukasaku, Naruto was the miracle that was needed in order to change this world. It was his wish that came true when he fought for the village against pain. The teacher from Miyabaki-san, after hearing the battle, gave a proud smile to Naruto. The boy that could do miracles, the hope of the world, took this huge leap of fate. Perhaps it was meant to be that Naruto lead the people in trying times. But that huge burden must be too much to bear for a person as young as he is. They made their way to the Hokage's office. Naruto was careful not to be seen by any of his new fans. He was still unprepared for something as big as becoming Hokage right now. As he made his way upstairs, he opened the door to his office, and there sat in front of his desk was the trio that came from Cloud. Kakashi looked stunned as he saw Naruto. He was the absolute spitting image of the fourth in that uniform of his. He sat on the Hokage's chair. A feeling of nostalgia took over him as he leaned back and said, "I'd never imagined sitting in this chair with my age. It feels different," the new Hokage said, his two subordinates standing firm to his side. Kakashi and Yamato spoke at the same time. "You will eventually get used to it, Hokage-sama." Naruto disdainfully looked at his two former teachers and shouted, "Cut the crap already." Kakashi and Yamato merely smiled and forced back a laugh. He then turned to the visiting Kumo ninjas that had sweat drops at the back of their heads. "So what are you guys here for?" asked the blonde haphazardly, his left elbow resting on the desk and his chin resting on the palm of his left hand. Samui looked at her team, and Amoy gave the scroll to her. The busty female then said, "Raikage-sama has requested a Kage Summit in a week. He wishes to discuss on what to do about Akatsuki." Naruto raised an eyebrow at that and then turned to Kakashi. "Sensei, has Bach-an sent request aides to fight against Akatsuki when I wasn't here?" Kakashi visibly nodded, "Yes, but the requests were denied by both Earth Country and Lightning Country several times, forcing her to create the Niju Shoutai, 20 platoons." The team from Kumo was shocked to hear this. The Raikage denied pleas from Konoha to aid them against Akatsuki. Naruto turned back to the team and said, "I know the importance of taking down the Akatsuki. I've encountered almost all of their members in the past. My only question is, why act now all of a sudden?" Samui, the spokesperson of the team said, "The Raikage's brother, Killer Bee, was taken captive by Akatsuki when he was in Unraikyo, Valley of Clouds and Lightning." Naruto then said, "So he's a host then?" The blonde then turned around and asked Yamato, "Sensei, you still have that book that Kabuto gave us? It has all the information they need about the remaining members of the organization." Samui looked at the young Hokage for a moment and then to the one with the face plate who rummaged through his gear and gave the small book to her. Samui turned and flipped every page, scanning the members, and then gave the book back on the desk. "I'm sorry, but this seems a bit outdated, Hokage-sama. The Akatsuki seems to have gained new members in their ranks." Samui bowed. Naruto looked on in interest and he stood up and asked, "Who?" was his simple question. Samui seemed shocked for a moment and then said, "Uchiha Sasuke." This time, it was Naruto who frowned as he sat down. "Are you sure about this?" Samui nodded her head. "I am positive, our sources have clear visual proof. We want to know all about Uchiha Sasuke. What are his abilities? Techniques?" Samui continued. Kakashi looked on in hidden worry for the new Hokage. Naruto seemed to clench his fists on the table. There was a sign of anger and grief laden in his whole body until finally he sat down. The blonde gave a sigh and asked to the three, "What are you going to do if I gave the information to you?" "We'll hunt him down and kill him, of course." Carrie shouted. Amoy chastised the firebrand and looked at the Hokage. Naruto looked at Carrie and then sighed. "I'm sorry, but the records of Uchiha Sasuke are dated. During my predecessor's reign, all records of shinobi in the past 3 years were updated, except all known Nukenin, and with Sasuke joining a shady group, the search for info on him would be much harder." Old Lady Tsunade focused on the tasks of increasing the village's shinobi count that was considerably reduced during the invasion of Sound and Sand. "I'm sorry I can't help you any further, but the old records would be the only thing that would help you." Naruto lied. He knew some of Sasuke's techniques that could help the team, but he didn't want Sasuke dead, no. Revenge is a very dark path and a path that lead to unfulfilled emptiness and nothingness. It was no use in bringing back the dead, there was nothing to gain, only everything to lose. But before taking down Sasuke, your teacher may still be alive, focus on finding and rescuing him first. Naruto advised. Kakashi merely stepped back and sighed. Naruto seemed to have handled that situation well. Samui looked at the Hokage in shock and asked, "How can you be sure?" Naruto simply replied, "Akatsuki needs the hosts alive, I am one of them, I should know." A member blurted out that they needed us in living and breathing conditions. "I have the most experience out of the 9 hosts in handling them." It was then that Naruto asked Samui about the Kage Summit. Where will the summit be held, Kunoichi-san? Hetsu no Kuni, Land of Iron. We thank you for your cooperation, Hokage-sama, and the info you have given us that Killer Bee is still alive. Naruto merely nodded as he placed his backpack on his shoulders. Fukasaku was patiently waiting at the desk. Yamato-sensei, escort these guys on the records department in the library. Kakashi-sensei, I trust you can handle things here while I'm gone. Kakashi nodded and Yamato saluted. All shall be done in the request of the Hokage. Naruto put a finger up, about to say something, but decided to stop and said, forget it. With a dejected sigh, he was met with his new teacher, Fukasaku. Naruto bit his right thumb and drew blood, swiping it on his left palm, he began trailing 5 hand seals, and there appeared a very small frog. Fukasaku spoke to the small frog. Alright Gamameu, you're going to be the summoner here in Konoha while I train Naruto at Miyabakizan, make sure you stick close to the masked jounin with the slanting hit I. Summon Naruto back here within 5 days. The small frog gave a salute and Naruto nodded, he looked up in the starlit night sky as he was about to leave. The old toad Fukasaku asked him, why are you interested in Fuinjutsu, Naruto-chan? Naruto merely gave an answer, because if I want to beat Madara and the rest of the Akatsuki, I'd have to learn anything that I can. I saw the effect of what seals can do, this will compensate for me not having any bloodline. I'll just have to learn harder than normal. Naruto's expression then turned grim, that and I thought I'd have the chance to counter that bastard Sharingan technique. An image of the spiral masked man crossed his mind. Naruto frowned. The meeting of the 5 cages will occur in 1 week's time, I'll pour everything I have to this training, please Fukasaku-sensei teach me. Fukasaku merely gave a knowing smile. Over the course of 5 days, Fukasaku would be surprised just how fast Naruto learns and how long his drive to succeed is. The Rakudame Hokage has begun to make his move. This time, nothing is going to hold him back. To be continued. Chapter 2. Starting all over, Ascension. 2 days after Pain's attack on Konoha, the village had begun rebuilding itself from scratch once again. Kakashi, as the acting Hokage for Naruto as the blonde polishes himself enough for his position, had sent emissaries to Nami, Wave, and Haru, Spring. Currently, the ones assigned for the mission to Wave looked up at the gigantic sign that had greeted them at the entrance of the gigantic bridge. Well, I'll be a monkey's uncle. Konohamaru muttered, Yuden then said, technically, you're a monkey summoner not an uncle. Konohamaru glared daggers at his snot-dripping teammate and said, it was an expression, jackass. Indeed, after training hard under Ibisu's watch, Konohamaru, after learning of Naruto's summons, earned the right to sign the contract with the monkey summons. Although not as monstrous as Naruto's toad summons, the monkeys were strong. The monkeys excelled in close to mid-range combat. Konohamaru had to learn how to handle a bow staff. His first summon happened to be the son of Monkey King, Enma. A young monkey in training that could transform into a 3-quartered staff. And although he could have used that against Pain in their fight, he wasn't very skilled in using Goku at the moment, which was a prerequisite in earning the right to use Enma. Much to his never-ending frustration about it, Konohamaru persevered, if only to catch up to Naruto who could summon the boss frog, Gamabunta, in battle. Mogi merely stared up at the name of the bridge and seemed awed with their Bozu. The Great Naruto Bridge. Wow, I can't believe they named a bridge to the Bozu. Hey, Konohamaru-kun, how do you think Naruto Oyabun has gone far? Konohamaru shrugged, don't know really, if he fought that freaky Pain guy and won, he's gotten so much stronger. I wish I could have seen their fight closer. Speaking of Oyabun, I haven't seen him in the past few days, where do you think he went? Yuden asked, Konohamaru huffed and bonked Yuden's head lightly. Training, of course. He's off to do more epic things. Like saving a princess. He's done that. Mogi cut off, Konohamaru's eyes bugged out and said, what? Yuden replied, you haven't heard Konohamaru-kun. Bozu was in a movie a few years ago. She saved Fujika's Yuki, the actress, who turned out to be a real-life princess. Ibisu, who fixed his shades, grew somewhat, turning into a green-eyed monster because of the rumored ending of the said film, nodded and said, it's true, Konohamaru-kun. Naruto-kun did save Koyuki Haim. Konohamaru shouted, you've got to be kidding me. Oyabun already did that. All 3 of his traveling companions nodded at the same time. Ibisu then said, I'm worried about the rumors spreading about. They say that the council has already assigned a new Hokage when Tsunade-sama is still alive but critically injured. I'm afraid Danzo-sama has taken over the seat of power. Tsunade-sama was the only blockade that Danzo had for the title, but Kakashi-san said that we need to disperse the rumors. The new Hokage is not Danzo, but the details were hush-hush. Konohamaru looked on, raising his left eyebrow in doubt, nah, I won't believe that, I bet it's the boss who became Hokage. Ibisu laughed at that remark. Konohamaru-kun, well indeed Naruto-kun has shown great potential, and that fight with pain has indeed shown that Naruto-kun has improved. He is still far too young to become Hokage. For one, he still needs experience in leading. The rumors said he hasn't led a team before, so I doubt he's eligible at the moment. Oh, how Ibisu would eat those words right out of his mouth when the announcement came. Konohamaru shrugged. Hey, it was just a suggestion. As they approached the house that Kakashi had instructed them, Ibisu knocked on the door and coughed a little, clearing his voice. He had heard from Kakashi that the lady of the house was an unmarried mother who had looks of a 20-year-old model. Ibisu was naturally sold on the mission. He wanted to have a big first impression after all. Adjusting his glasses for a cool effect, Ibisu's suave and coolness of the situation had him met with a frying pan to his face. Wham! Mom? It's another stalker. Honestly, why don't you just marry someone, Mom? That way these guys won't be bothering us anymore. Konohamaru then glared at the boy and shouted, hey, would you hit sensei like that? Sure, he's a closet pervert, but he's completely harmless. Ibisu struggled to get up and clutch his nose in pain. That brat has some powerful arm swing. Mogi smiled at the boy with the fisherman's hat and said, actually, we're just emissaries from Konoha. We're here on account of the acting Hokage requesting someone by the name of Tazuna-san to assist us in some rebuilding. Inari raised an eyebrow at that, but when he heard the word Konoha, his eyes immediately sparked to life. Oh, from Konoha. I'm sorry. Mom has a lot of guy problems actually. Just this week, I almost fired the crossbow on the guy that was spying on Mom by the tree outside. So I'm a bit careful. Great detection skills. Ibisu commented, grabbing his first aid kit and an antiseptic. Anyway, you're looking for my grandpa. He's in the main town, why don't you guys just wait for him here? He'll be back soon. The boy then gestured for the guests to come in, that the four politely agreed and went inside. Inari was ecstatic. Hey, have you heard someone by the name of Uzumaki Naruto? He asked. The three genins looked at each other and nodded. You mean Oyabun? Yeah, he's pretty well known in our place, he just saved us from destruction just 2 days ago. Konohamaru mentioned, grinning. You don't say. Tell me what Nai-san did. Inari demanded. His mother then stepped out of the kitchen and smiled. Now Inari, it's not nice to demand something from our guests this early. Tsunami said. Ibisu looked at the motherly figure that appeared before him, absolutely stunned by her earthly beauty. No, her goddess-like features. Ah, I'm sorry for barging in, Mrs. Tsunami. I'm sorry for barging in, Mrs. Tsunami, but we're here to ask for Tazuna-san's help in some repairs in the village. Tsunami nodded with a smile. Oh? What happened? Konohamaru continued, like we said, this guy almost destroyed us if it weren't for Naruto Oyabun. Tsunami then sat down as Konohamaru had said Naruto's fight against pain. All in exaggerated detail. Ibisu meanwhile couldn't really correct Konohamaru on that one. After all, it was a close interpretation on what happened. Sure, it was a bit exaggerated in some areas, like Konohamaru mentioning his super awesome Rasengan blasting one body to chunks and bits. But it was close as a 12-year-old's interpretation anyway. A knock on the door was heard. Inari was about to grab his weapon of choice for the day, the frying pan, until he had heard the man slurred and shouted incoherently from the other side of the door. Let me in. Itch me. Grandpa. Blee. The sound of hurling and a few chunks of liquid splashing on the ground were heard outside. Uh-oh. Konohamaru uttered. Mogi voiced her concern. Did he just barf? Ibisu sighed. Kakashi didn't tell him that the person they were searching for was a drunkard. This was going to be a long explanation. 2 days earlier, Naruto had arrived at Miyabakizan. Many of the citizens from Konoha didn't know where he had gone to, and he hoped it'd stay that way for a while. He was fearful of what might happen. But now that he had made up his mind, it was time to start thinking ahead. Jiraiya always did say if he put his mind to it, he'd be a better shinobi, possibly better than any of his generation group and beyond. Jiraiya had told him how he was much like the person Naruto is. The old pervert told him about how he was just not focused enough in handling one task in training back then. When Jiraiya was a kid, he would often neglect training in favor of peeping. That and his idea of being a ninja was to make Tsunade fall in love with him for his display of machismo. That didn't really suit well with the said girl, as it seemed what he received from Tsunade was a beating that almost made him kick the bucket. A little pep talk from the Sandaime changed his ways a little. Sure, he was still the lecherous sleazebag that Tsunade occasionally nailed to the wall or flung him to lower Earth orbit, but he got to go serious about his ninja career, and look where that got him in this lifetime. Naruto went inside Shima and Fukasaku's home, intent on learning all that he can. The old lady toad spoke to him. Naruto-chan, there's the bookshelves about Fuinjutsu near our rooms. If you want to start reading on the basics about sealing, then go ahead. But be advised it's kind of hard to do when you apply it. I suggest you do that in the morning, you can read at night. Be advised Naruto-chan, Fuinjutsu normally takes up a lot of characters and symbols to be written, you should have an extensive vocabulary to write the seals down. Jiraiya-chan had to learn about writing them for 3 weeks non-stop, are you sure 5 days is all that you need? Learning this is purely self-study, we can only watch you perform them. Naruto looked at Shima and said, it's all that I need. Shima smiled at this, very well, I'll leave you to your devices Naruto-chan. Naruto nodded as he began taking notes on a piece of paper and began writing down some of the important parts that seemed important as he read. Fuinjutsu, the art of sealing, is still a very mystified concept in the world. It has been an ancient art existing longer than the Rakuto Sennin's time. Artisans of this field are rare, as often, learning the art of sealing is meticulous and time-consuming. Often the use of Fuinjutsu is to bind an object or living organism into another, existing in one being yet not being the same. Different characters have different effects, often the amalgam of seals causes a new effect to occur, this is called transmutation, as it gives countless possibilities to produce with just a simple stroke. Naruto then turned the page and continued. Fuinjutsu is much of a science as it is mysticism. Sealing techniques are what preserved the human civilization from extinction. The reason being that Fuinjutsu has been used in ages past as a means in everyday lives like energy consumption and storage, the uses of Fuinjutsu is endless. Naruto soon got bored of the introduction, turning the page. He skimmed the very first 10 pages and then wound up on starting the basics. Naruto immediately raised an eyebrow at this and went outside of the Elder Toad's house. He could hear the rushing toad oil falling from the cascading waterfall, there were no crickets in here, as if there were. They would have been decimated by Gamatotsu alone. But there were the stars out tonight and he did have a flashlight in his backpack. So with a flick of his hands together, he formed the seal for Kage Bunshin and in a matter of seconds, 1,000 clones immediately came into existence with a loud pop, along with a copy of the book per clone. The original Naruto then shouted, alright guys, you have 4 hours to study page 10 of the book up to page 40. Let's make this the most rigorous training we've ever had yet. The clones all nodded and gave a shout. Konoha, present time. Kakashi viewed the people in front of his desk, with a tap on the desk, he looked on and sighed, there weren't missions to hand out for the moment, since the village is undergoing major repairs, Yamato was out there overseeing the construction, and being the one with the Mokuton ability, he's been asked to restore some of the houses. Kakashi held back a laugh at the disgruntled and fatigued image of his cowhide crossing his mind. The villagers make it sound so easy on Yamato. Kakashi's musings were quickly vanished from his thoughts as he heard Hyuga Neji clearing his throat. Ah, I see you have become the Hokage. Rival Kakashi. Guy shouted, of course, Kakashi's mind, going on autopilot, replied. Oh Guy, what are you doing here? Said man pointed a finger to the proxy Hokage and said, Kakashi. You and your hip ways. That is why you are my rival. I challenge you Kakashi, who will make a better Hokage? If I lose, I'll rebuild Konoha with my elbows, and if I can't do that, I'll use my feet, and if I can't do that. The matter of leading the village isn't a contest, sensei. Neji yelled, Tenten nodded in approval of Neji's outburst. Kakashi then said, look, before your sensei delves deep into his mind to parts unknown and spout more of his rules, I'm handing over this mission to you guys to Spring Country, requesting for aid alright. Don't open the scroll, it's only meant for the princess of the land, since she's the commander-in-chief there. Neji merely nodded and exited and grumbled, of all the eccentric jounin out there, why was I under him? Kakashi gave an eye smile, of course the scroll contained the letter about all of the aid and supplies that they might need, along with a copy of the Icha Paradise movie he wanted signed, but they didn't need to know that. Who says you can't be abusive about your powers every once in a while? Now to find a team that's gullible enough to go into a wild goose chase. God how he loved being a proxy for the Hokage. Ibisu and his team was the first victim, so who's going to be the next unfortunate schmuck? Back in Mayabakizan, a blonde-haired teenager sneezed and a shiver ran down his spine, making him lose his concentration. Something tells me I need to finish my training faster than usual. The blonde said sniffing and continued to read the book. Now to oversee how Sakura and the others are faring. Kakashi got up from his seat and went out of the office and went outside. The frog summoner by the side of the desk perched on his shoulder. Once they got out, he immediately went to ground zero and looked for the personal tent that held the comatose Tsunade. Once inside, he greeted Sakura who, along with Shizune, were meticulously guarding and taking care of the Godame. Kakashi-sensei, is it true that Konoha is now enlisting Sasuke as a nuke nin? Sakura asked, not looking at Kakashi. Kakashi hadn't heard of this. Naruto didn't declare Sasuke missing nin yet. Who gave those rumors? Kakashi asked, Sakura looked down, a sullen expression crossing her face. It's not a fact yet, Kakashi-san, but with speculation that Danzo-sama is going to be Hokage, we fear for the worst to happen to Sasuke. Shizune answered. Kakashi nodded. Well, dispel those rumors for now, I've already said this to Team Abisu, Danzo isn't the replacement for Hokage. Kakashi answered, alleviating any worries from his former student. Do you know who's going to be selected, Kakashi-sensei? Kakashi kept a straight poker face and replied, not going to, already selected. Though he wants to keep it quiet for a while, said that there were still things left undone. Shizune raised an eyebrow at this and then noticed, that's right, I completely forgot. Where is Naruto? We need to check up on him for any signs of injuries. Naruto's fine, he's just doing some unfinished business, Kakashi casually replied and added, he'll be back here in a matter of days, don't worry. He's perfectly fine. Understanding that sentence that Kakashi passed off to Shizune made the older woman slightly frown, she may have already an inkling suspicion what with Kakashi's hint at the end, but she wasn't going to say it out loud. No, with the announcement that the successor of Tsune'd be introduced by the end of the week, it meant that the new Hokage or the person that she suspects would be up to something. Sakura only nodded and focused back on healing her master. She just hoped that Danzo was not the one that was going to be Hokage. As they went back to caring for Tsune'd, it was then that they heard a voice calling out to Sakura to go out. The said girl walked out only to be met with Shikamaru with a completely healed leg. Sakura, the rookie 9 of our time, decided to have a talk about how to deal with everything that's happened. Sakura then nodded, she followed suit entrusting the care of Tsunade to Shizune, who nodded and Kakashi remained quiet. Have you realized what that talk might be, Kakashi-san? Asked Shizune, looking sullen. Kakashi looked up and said. I kind of got the idea of what it's about. Kakashi said. Once Shikamaru escorted Sakura to the place where all of them could talk about what Shikamaru wanted to tell, all the present of the rookie 9, minus Sasuke and Naruto, were already in the training field that Sakura recognized was the place that Team 7 was created during the Bell test 3 years ago. Shikamaru, it isn't like you to call all of us out here and have a discussion. Kiba said, looking serious. When Shikamaru went and did some effort around the village it meant one thing, the dire consequences are about to occur. Indeed, your behavior suggests that you are going to speak about something that could change your very perception of what is to come. Shino concurred. Ever the observant Abiram, Shikamaru lazily scratched the back of his neck and said. See, can we please start? I need to tend to my clansmen and the compound, the damages are quite severe after that attack. Hinata said. Sakura looked sullen when she saw Hinata, it felt like something had hit her when she saw Hinata knocking on death's door, down on the ground, and bleeding all for the sake of Naruto. My dad is helping with the repairs downtown. I need to go out there as well. My god, I don't know what would have happened if Naruto hadn't arrived later. Chaoji mentioned. Alright. I got it, just let me say it first. Shikamaru then walked to the side and leaned on one of the erected stumps on the training grounds. Have any of you felt something close to mortifying when we were out there, fighting against that monster, Pain? All of the former rookie 9 remained silent. All of them were looking down for a reason. Pain managed to kill more than half of our population when that jutsu was used on the village. I saw a lot of people died in just a flash, in just a moment, I saw people dying left and right, children crying or dead. I never felt so horrible. If you were near the decryption department, close to downtown, you could have seen the very effect of the epicenter of that jutsu. Shikamaru felt a shiver crawl down his spine, holding his formerly injured leg, all those horrified souls that were dead just mere days ago flashing before his eyes. Then just in the evening after the attack, when I just got my leg healed, I was down by the record section since it was close to our home. I overheard this conversation from 3 foreign nin that came, they were Kumo nin. Shikamaru continued, I heard that Sasuke became part of Akatsuki. Everyone seemed to gasp at this, Kiba shouted. What the hell is going on? What on earth possessed Sasuke to join that organization? I don't know, but based on the reports from Intel, Akatsuki had managed to capture the 8-tailed host. You can already see where this is going. Shikamaru answered, Ino then spoke up. But that can't be right. Sasuke joined the same organization as his brother. The same organization that killed Asuma-sensei. Shikamaru sighed and continued. It wasn't the fact that Sasuke captured the 8-tailed host that served as the breaking point for a foreign village to move out. It was the fact that the 8-tailed host was the brother of the Raikage. You understand now? Sasuke caused such an international uproar that the way I see it, Danzo or not, the new Hokage has no choice but to play Sasuke on the bingo book lest he or she wants our village to go to war. Besides, I'd be damned if they take Naruto. This time, Shikamaru's expression turned grim. This time Kiba's fists were shaking, so it comes to this then do we have a choice? Sasuke was our friend, but I'm not going to let him take Naruto. Shino replied, in his monotone, if persuasion through words cannot reach Sasuke anymore, then there's no helping it. I'd rather kill Sasuke than lose Naruto. Wait. How can you be sure that the new Hokage would just let this stand by? Sakura asked. Shikamaru explained to Sakura. Sakura, no one who is not a ninja of Konoha is allowed to go the records department, you understand, right? That's where they store info on Anbu profiles, shinobi profiles and most of all, jutsu and Konoha techs. You think that the Hokage will allow 3 foreign nin to just casually walk in there? They need permission and supervision, and I happen to see Yamato-sensei there. What's going to happen? Ino looked at Shikamaru in worry. Shikamaru grabbed one of his teacher's trench knives and gripped the handle as tight as he can. We're going to take care of Sasuke, with or without Naruto's approval. It's bad enough that he carries the burden for all of us. We can't rely on him forever. We need to grow up as well. Shikamaru said. It was then that Ino and Sakura started breaking down. Hinata remained silent in the whole ordeal. Sasuke is now liable for his actions, there's nothing that can be done. I wanted to tell this to Naruto, but he isn't here. I've tried finding him everywhere, the ramen shop, the training fields, his apartment, even the goddamn monument, he isn't anywhere. Shikamaru said. Sakura then said to Shikamaru, take me to the Hokage. DCH, like that'll be easy. The whole council is hiding the fact of who's going to be the next Hokage. I even asked my dad who it was. He just said that the matter will reveal itself in 3 days. I'm sorry, Sakura, but if you want to talk to the Hokage, you're going to have to wait 3 more days to finally speak to him or her. Sakura could only let the tears fall from her eyes. Myabakuzen. 2 days had passed, and Naruto's progress has been occurring in leaps and bounds. He had most of the symbols and characters down by the morning of the 2nd day, using his Kage Bunshin in a span of 4 hours to learn about the symbols and characters. He had the basis for sealing done 2 days ago, and now, he had been practicing his applied knowledge on it. One sealing technique in particular caught his eye. The Ukahoin, fire suppression seal. The ability to suppress any fire. In its first use, the seal was used to put down forest fires, burning houses and wildfires that are close to human civilizations. This is the seal that Iro Sennin used to suppress that black fire 3 years ago. Naruto then made his clones turn on the page that he wanted them to turn and shouted, alright, this is another sealing procedure to master, can you guys do this? They all nodded as each of them grabbed an ink and brush from their bags and grabbed another scroll. Shima and Fukasaku looked were then requested to make a powerful Kaiten jutsu. The 2 frogs looked at each other and nodded. Putting up their hand seals, they shouted. Kaiten. Gameyu Enden. Fire release. Toad oil flame bullet. The 2 frogs then looked up and blew the devastating fire jutsu upwards. The fire erupted and had spread in a wide arc. The clones then quickly began to work. Pouring chakra onto the writings of the seal, the clones slammed their hands on it. Fuinjutsu. Fuukahoin. The original shouted as tendrils of chakra escaped from the scrolls, beginning to grapple the fire that was dancing in midair. The chakra began to siphon the flames, forcing it down to the scroll, the symbol of fire, etching to the scroll as the symbols and characters began surrounding the symbol of fire. Naruto grinned, a success. Well, you have a pretty firm grip of understanding Fuinjutsu now. These are just the basics, writing seals are the basic of the basics. Since you can actually do seals and writing easier, we can finally move on to the sealing techniques that you don't have to write, but you let your chakra weave the seal for you. Fukasaku said. Naruto wiped the sweat from his brow and nodded enthusiastically. 3 days left. Unknown location. Sasuke had informed his team to prepare and head to Konoha as they exited and began running as fast as they can. Sasuke mentioned that Taka would no longer have a use for Akatsuki, they had paid their debt and they were going away for good. On the serene forest far from Sasuke, a spiral-like pattern in the air rippled and spun, revealing the mask of Tobi. Sasuke was jumping from branch to branch when suddenly, he was met with a man that had blocked their path. Sujetsu, who was following Sasuke, stopped and asked the leader of their group. What's wrong, Sasuke? Sasuke was staring at the masked persona that was Uchiha Madara. Parents seemed surprised by the sudden appearance, it was as if the man had popped out of nowhere. Hey Sasuke. Was the man's only reply. Sasuke asked the man. How did you know where I was? Madara only leaned in closer and said, don't underestimate me, this technique is well within my powers. It was then that Sasuke spoke, what do you want with me now? Taka is no longer part of Akatsuki. We have no further use for you. I said I'd have to kill you if you betray Akatsuki and you broke your promise to me. The man's single visible Sharingan squinted as it looked at Sasuke. Sasuke seemed confused of the man and asked, what are you talking about? The 8-tailed beast, you failed to capture it, Sasuke. Perrin then said, but I thought we captured it. We even gave it to you. Madara stared at them quietly. Sujetsu seemed agitated by the man as well as Yugo. It was a fake, the 8-tails pulled a fast one on you, I'm really disappointed in you guys. The man said, dissatisfaction in his voice. Sasuke seemed to realize his mistake even when he failed to notice that the tentacle that he severed during the fight with the 8 tails could have contained Killer Bee. His musings were cut off when Sujetsu shouted, "What do you want us to do about it? It's not our business anymore. Since we did your part of the bargain, you do it yourselves. No, you will finish your last job as part of Akatsuki. Forget about the 8 tails, I already sent someone to capture him, there's something else I want all of you to do." Sasuke then asked, as he lowered his base, "What if I said no?" Madara replied in a casual manner. "Then you'll have to fight me to get to Konoha. I won't let you pass." Sasuke's hand flickered with lightning as it crackled loudly and held it close to his chest, the Chidori coming to life. "I'll force my way through." With a flash, Sasuke immediately closed in on Madara, with Sasuke's hand already extended to Madara's chest. But just when Sasuke had thought that he had speared Tobi with the Chidori, he soon saw himself actually phasing through the man. Madara simply said, "It's a little too late to go to Konoha now. Your goal is futile now, too bad, Konohagakure no longer exists, my minion, pain destroyed it." Sasuke looked surprised, his eyes wide at that, this bastard. He took away his goal. He could feel his anger welling up, rising like tide smashing against the shore. Sasuke slowly inched his hand towards Kusanagi, about to go all out on Tobi, until he saw a green plant with jagged patterns in the middle rise from the branch that Madara stood on. Sujetsu seemed surprised and asked who was the person that appeared. "Calm down, he's with me." Madara reassured them. "So who's the new Hokage?" asked Madara. The talks were very secretive, but from the rumors going around Konoha, they say that the next in line for Hokage is Danzo. Zetsu mentioned, this got Sasuke's interest. Madara looked at Sasuke for a moment, he could feel the sudden rise of killing intent coming from Sasuke. Madara seemed to smile under his mask in this predicament. "I thought as much," Madara said. Sasuke asked. "Danzo is Hokage." Tobi only said, "It's just factual speculation. But he is the most probable candidate at the current situation. He's the one responsible for making your brother do what he did, and now, he's Hokage." Sasuke gritted his teeth, this time his right hand was now holding Kusanagi. Because you and Pain had made such a commotion, the 5 cages had begun to move. They're about to hold a meeting. Sasuke remained silent at this as Zetsu continued. "I'll explain the rest, Sasuke. You see, Pain took initiative in capturing the 9-tailed host, and we let him. Take into mind that Pain was one of our strongest members. He conquered a Megakure and can do a jutsu that can take out an entire village. Yeah, he could probably kick your ass without a problem." At the mentioning of the phrase, 9-tailed host, Sasuke pictured Naruto, who had stared at him back then, those ruthless blood-colored eyes, and that almost malicious animalistic slit he ever saw. But when Pain had invaded Konoha, he terrorized the village and destroyed most of it. Now Konoha is in ruins. But Pain still lost to one person. He lost to Uzumaki Naruto, the 9-tailed host. Sujetsu raised an eyebrow and asked, "So this Naruto defeated Pain all by himself?" "That's right, he's gotten pretty strong, he may be even stronger than Sasuke." Uchiha scoffed at the idea and said, "I don't care about that, the 5 cages are the problem." Sujetsu then said, "Well, what are you going to do then, Sasuke? Danzo's your target, right? Konoha is pretty much decimated. If Danzo is going to that meeting, shouldn't we just go over there by ourselves?" Sasuke seemed to contemplate at this, considering the almost near impossible chance of not having a head-on collision with any of the cages. Perrin, however, seemed adamant about the whole thing. For one, it was the freaking 5 cages, there was no way that Sasuke could even hope to fight them all at once. Only a madman would dare do so. "We'll go to the meeting and kill the 5 cages, our plans have changed," Sasuke said, without as much as hesitation in his voice. Perrin could feel herself shivering at the thought of facing the top ninjas of each of the 5 major villages. For someone, even if it is Sasuke, facing all 5 of them in one place is beyond suicide. Madara, however, seemed to encourage Sasuke's harebrained idea. "So where is this meeting?" Karen asked, resigning herself to her fate. Madara motioned for Zetsu to lead them, and Zetsu did so. The jagged pattern of the leaf separated, seeing figure of a man whose body and face was separated in black and white, and it kept separating, tearing himself down in the middle. To the rest that are not used to this, they were utterly disgusted when they saw Zetsu fully severing himself in 2, as his white half lead the way with the 4 members of Taka following behind. Yugo seemed unsure of the predicament. "Can we trust them, Sasuke? Let's just see what happens if he tries anything funny. I'll use Amaterasu on him, there's something I've been meaning to test out anyway," Sasuke mentioned as they jumped straight towards the land of iron. "I can't believe Nagato used Ren Tensei like that. That was supposed to be reserved for me. What a betrayal, Uzumaki Naruto, he's thrown a wrench to my plans. Zetsu, I think it's time we step up, finally let the world know what we are truly aiming for. Time for the Tsuki no Mi to come into fruition." "My Bakuzan." Naruto had never thought how seals were so versatile. That introduction from the first book didn't do the endless possibilities of Fuinjutsu justice. It was unimaginable. From one of the writings of the book, it was said that Fuinjutsu, in the hands of a true artisan, could turn into the most deadly weapon. Right now, he had even created a seal that gives the body a sudden electrical jolt whenever someone was struck with Jinjutsu. It didn't matter what kind of Jinjutsu it was, as long as the seal was placed, the seal would trigger and command the chakra to cause a defibrillator effect and jolt on the neural nerve cells to disrupt the chakra flow. It was painful, but since he was still new to the sealing arts, it was understandable. Hopefully he could turn this new art that he had learned as a sort of hobby, maybe even incorporate it for some entertainment. Now that he had only one day left before going back, he thought about all that has happened so far, all of the events that had come into culmination due to the people responsible. It seemed like fate was a stack of dominoes, one decision affected all. In his case, it was absolutely true. Going through a set of hand seals, he had discovered that in Fuinjutsu, the sequence of seals had purpose. For example, the boar seal meant the grasp of the earth, it was about stasis, as earth was unbending to anyone's will. The earth symbolized fortitude and strength. In Fuinjutsu, doing the seal of the boar meant putting an object in stasis and suppression, forcing something to go down or become inactive. Next was the dragon, it symbolized uninhibited instinct and nobility. The dragon meant superiority and benevolence, the wind above their head soaring into the sky. In Fuinjutsu, the dragon bears the ability to release tension, convert raw power to something more manageable, a buffer if you will. Boy Naruto, here's the request you made 4 days ago. Naruto's musings were cut off when he saw Gamakichi leaping towards him with the said object in hand. Naruto ran towards Gamakichi and thanked his longtime toad friend. Thanks, Gamakichi, this is perfect. Once Naruto grabbed the object in his hand, he raised it up above his shoulder and met it at eye level. Naruto had requested a Fuuma shuriken be made on the same metal that Asuma had with his trenched knives. Meaning the chakra absorbed by the blade would be amplified. But what set this Fuuma shuriken different from the rest was the black handle it had at the ring in the middle. Since Fuuma shuriken had a folding-like trigger, it looked like a weapon that could be used in both close range and long range. Most of the weapon had one unique trait that Naruto wanted. The edge was reversed. The blunt part was meant to bludgeon, it could be lethal, but the most important was that the blade would only be used when thrown to pin down an opponent or distract them long enough for Naruto to take down. I don't get it why you want that shuriken to have a handle, it's not like you'll be able to fight with it most of the time at close range, and the Fuuma shuriken's locking mechanism when it's closed is flimsy. Gamakichi explained, Naruto replied. Not really, I've got a seal designed to interlocking it in place and then releasing it in its shuriken state. Naruto then grabbed an ink and a brush. Since the Fuuma shuriken was made from a different metal, it didn't exactly had the same color as a normal Fuuma shuriken, in fact it was silver, the only thing dark in the weapon was the handle that was in the ring at the middle. Naruto then began to write the kanji for blade on the first side of the shuriken and then wrote the kanji for windmill on the other. Naruto then put his hands together for a series of seals. First, he started with the dog seal, symbolizing loyalty and obedience, for the Fuuma shuriken to activate upon verbal command. Then he used the seal of monkey, the symbol of intelligence and autonomy, to activate by what command phrase that Naruto wanted and to make it automatically revert back to its blade form without a need for a verbal command when unneeded. Then he used the dragon to buffer his chakra slowly into the blade and then tiger, the symbol of power and pride, to activate the metal's amplification properties. Naruto then slammed his right hand on the character of blade as it is the initial seal that he had written. Whoa, Aniki, what did you do? Gamakichi asked, Naruto grinned. It's one of the easy seals I managed to come up with just yesterday, I called it Ningu Ihei, Ninja Tool Sentinel. You'd be really surprised just how much Kage Bunshin you need just to make up a seal. It feels like 20 years doing all that work. Naruto exclaimed, Gamakichi laughed. Naruto was still in the process of learning the no symbol style Fuinjutsu, but he was getting there. Fukasaku said that being adept in it is all that's needed for a while, he had a meeting to attend to anyway. So with tomorrow his last day before going back to his village, he trained with getting to know how to use his Fuuma shuriken instead. As the end of his 5-day training period coming closer and closer, Naruto, on his last day, decided to sleep and rest before being summoned back to Konoha. Naruto, in his heart, was preparing him for his newest task. Guiding Konoha through the tides of uncertainty, protecting everyone and finally, bring about a new age of a world that his former teacher had longed for. Konoha, 5 days after Pain's attack. Are you ready? Kakashi asked. The figure at the back wore his red and black haori, a folded Fuuma shuriken strapped on his back, the black long-sleeve shirt under his green vest and black pants, wearing the red and white hat that symbolized his authority within Konoha. The symbol of fire placed at the tip forward. The figure nodded, the elders by the side were standing sideways as they wait for the figure to step out of the door towards the balcony of the Hokage's building that miraculously survived from Pain's assault. As long as there are leaves, the will of fire shall never die. The figure looked on at the pictures of the 5 Hokages that had ruled before him as he took a step forward like a true leader, the elders and advisors, then saw the silhouette of Hokage's past, the back of Senju Hashirama, Tobirama, Hiruzen, Minato and Tsunade, going out to face that roaring crowd, his face hidden by the hat that had been placed above his head. Kakashi, Yamato, Kahara and Hamura were wide-eyed, they were breathless as they saw the person walking towards the people. From the midst of tragedy and despair, the will of fire has shone, and it had shined brightly in the radiant sun. As the people saw the person that had walked towards them, the winds howled and swayed in his presence, it was then that the new Hokage. The many that had seen the red and black Haori's hem of the clothing danced into the wind as the person walked towards them, they immediately recognized the person under that hat. Many would recall this as the moment of absolute change, flashes of memories littered the minds of the people as they saw the face of the new Hokage, removing the hat that he had coveted for so long ever since his childhood. As long as there are leaves in this village, the will of fire shall never die. I am the Rakudame Hokage. I am Uzumaki Naruto, and I will lead this village from now until my very last breath. The sounds of cheers and yells of praises could only be heard on the 5th day of the Rakudame's reign. Let fire burn brightest upon the most wise. To be continued. The Hokage's will. Chapter 3. Earth, lightning, wind, water and fire. As long as there are leaves in this village, the will of fire shall never die. Uzumaki Naruto, Rakudame Hokage. Everyone looked on in awe at the person that stood above them, with the hat of the village Kage held in his right hand. Naruto looked below in the same manner that the elder population of Konoha had seen only once from their former Hokages. Namikaze Minato. Shikamaru looked on in surprise himself, in a way. It answered the questions why Naruto had gone missing for the past 5 days, without as much as the Anbu searching for him and his requests from Kakashi that he search for Naruto being denied by the said man. Apparently, Kakashi was in on this too, seeing as he was the proxy Hokage, along with Yamato, who had supervised the Kumonin at the records department. So he's finally fulfilled his dream. It's kind of melancholic, huh, Shika? Ino mentioned as she thought how it must have been painful to label Sasuke as a missing nin. First off, don't call me that, second, yeah. I know what must be going through his head right now. He'll put his feelings as a friend aside in order to keep the village safe. It was then that Naruto began his speech. I'm sorry for taking this long to finally get to speak to you. I bet Kakashi-sensei got too bored at the job just within 5 days of it. He said that with a grin, some of the ninjas scowled at Kakashi at that, they were going around in circles 2 days ago disguised as a mission. And the item often was some crap that wasn't really that important. Kakashi merely scratched the back of his head and silently laughed, sure it was a sin to be fooling off when the village was in such a state, but come on. The thought of giving Guy a mission that involved a lot of scavenger hunts and fetch-me's was hard to pass up. Okay, so he did pass it up, if only because the village had a giant crater in the middle and the reserve genin and chunin needed exercise. Honest. Anyway, I'm sorry again for being late in announcing my ascension to the position. I had some things to take care of. Can you believe it? Me, a genin, not yet even reaching jounin or even chunin, and already, I took the seat. Ibiki-san must be laughing his ass off right now. Back in the intelligence department, said man was indeed laughing his ass off at the irony of it all. Even if I'm a genin for life, I'll still become Hokage, watch me. I'm not scared of you. Ibiki grinned as he watched perched on the rooftop of the ruined building and letting the new Hokage speak. Damn right you did, brat. Guess that's a loss on my part. Ibiki mentioned. Oh? It was him all along. I can't wait to entertain him when he's stressed. Ibiki stared at his partner and coughed something about being a cradle robber. Anko never was someone who could keep her thoughts to herself. Maybe that was why she was in the torture and interrogation department most of the time. As the things that come out of her mouth often scare the hell out of most men except for him though, Ibiki was the kind of guy that could eat a big piece of meat while watching Anko gut a man during one of her sessions, and that was saying something. You do know that 16 would get you 20, right? Ibiki mentioned. Anko merely shrugged, hey, a girl can dream can't she? Back at the tower, Naruto spoke, I know what it must feel like, losing everything right now, our home is destroyed, and the works of the people before us vanished without anything left, except for destroyed buildings and lives. Naruto closed his eyes for a moment, balling his right hand into a fist. But we're still alive, as long as we are alive, Konoha is still here. We are Konoha. We are the village that makes up the buildings. Everyone shouted in agreement. We'll get through this. We'll become stronger. We'll bounce right back. We'll kick more asses than the former Konoha did. Everyone smiled at that, Hinata merely smiled as she held her hands close to her chest. a blush crossing her cheeks. That first time we've got a loudmouth for a Hokage, he's done the impossible, eh Shino? Shino nodded with his hands in his pockets and said while looking up, this is the reason why I would not simply let Akatsuki get him. The bug user continued, why? Because every time one of us is sad, Naruto was there to make us feel better, forcing us to take another step forward by word or by force. Naruto made us into better persons, do you understand, Kiba? This is his power greater than any jutsu, greater than any tailed beast, this is the power that will drive us forward. Hinata nodded, Naruto-kun will be the one to lead us there. Taoji grinned as his father looked simply in awe, Naruto, we believe in you so, make us proud. Sakura simply looked at Naruto in melancholy, Naruto. Sai, who had been with Sakura all this time, looked at the cherry blossom girl then back to Naruto. He then said to the girl, Sakura, I may not understand Naruto and emotions that much, but even I can tell just how painful it must be for him to hear the news of Sasuke joining Akatsuki and the choice that he made on what to do. But even so Sakura muttered, Sai continued, it must be hard for Naruto to throw away his heart in order to keep your promise Sakura, please stop whatever you are doing, you and Sasuke are the cause of his greatest pain. Sakura could only stare at Naruto biting her lip as tears began to fall. If indeed her actions were the ones to cause him pain, maybe it was time to tell Naruto about Shikamaru's decision as well as the rest. As Naruto finished his speech, everyone seemed fired up, including the children. With renewed vigor, they went back to repairing the village again. Naruto went to the office, his clones working double time on the paperwork, ranging from budgets to status reports. Grabbing the summarized paperwork, he went out of his office, overseeing the repairs. According to the reports, the village repairs were coming along fine. Yamato had restored some of the amenities downtown. Most specifically the market and stores to jumpstart the business district. Naruto raised an eyebrow as the western area of the village had been rather well off. The hot springs were receiving quite a nice batch of customers. Naruto wondered at that, perhaps hearing of Jiraiya's demise somehow made the place trustworthy again. As he went around town, he overlooked the townspeople on the repairs, who apparently waved at him, with him waving back with a smile. Some of the women seemed to squeal however. Naruto scratched his head at that. Did he look that ugly that the women would scream like that? Whatever, he needed to go check on the other parts of town before he had to go tonight for that summit. He sighed, his work as Hokage was tiring, there were things to do and decisions to be made. Walking around the crater, Naruto saw Team Guy in front of him, minus their teacher. Lee was covering his eyes with his right forearm as the new Hokage approached them. Lee? What's the matter? The blonde asked. Naruto-kun. I was absolutely taken by your speech earlier. Your passion has ignited a fire in my spirit. Already you show the sign of being a great leader. Denton shrugged, ignore him, Blondie, he's just a little emotional after that little speech you gave. Denton, it's not courteous to call the Hokage names, I'm sorry Rakudame-sama my team is a little Niji apologized and bowed. Naruto seemed to groan at the new title and suffix in title he had just received, he'll never get used to it. Ah, pull that stick out of your ass, Niji. This is Naruto we're talking about he's not that particular about courtesy calls. Tenten mentioned, Niji begged to differ however. Titles are important Tenten, names are important. They tell that the person is a dignified member of the elite. Actually, I'm not that particular with names like that Naruto had cut in. Niji seemed to raise an eyebrow and said. That's not acceptable Rakudame-sama remember that you are now in the highest position. As such, you must display your authority as one. I believe that Naruto-kun's denial on title names is a show that states that he may be Hokage, but he is still a human like the rest of us. Naruto-kun. Your fires of youth shine brighter than any of us. Lee shouted, tears of joy welling from the bowl-cut Chunin. Lee, Naruto doesn't want to be called with a title because he's still not used to it, not because he wants to be the same as other people. Would he accept it to become Hokage in the first place if he just wants to be the same as the people? Tenten argued. This is why he must show that he has an air of benevolence. Niji replied. The three then started arguing with each other. Naruto sighed, how did they become a team again? Oh right, dead last plus genius plus smartest Kunoichi. Naruto really needed to revise that formula. The rookies would most likely kill each other before they could take the Chunin exam. Naruto had first-hand experience just how disproportionate their team was ever since the bell test, and although they grew up to complement their fighting styles, they fell apart. Sasuke left the village, Naruto was held back, and Sakura remained stagnant. Their team dynamics were the worst in their generation. Niji, Lee and Tenten were lucky enough, often they argued with each other and had a sensei that wasn't lax in team dynamics. Naruto and Sasuke argued with each other, while Sakura supported Sasuke adding fuel to the fire. Kakashi may have hoped that Sakura would serve the mediator, but it already came too late to realize when Sasuke and Naruto were already at each other's throats, almost critically injuring or even killing each other. Naruto thought that Team 7 most likely fell apart when Sasuke watched as he fought off Gaara of the Sand when he was barely able to stop him. That showed his jealousy and inferiority complex that Team 7 didn't know Sasuke had. Eyes. The blonde shouted, earning the attention of the three people arguing in front of him. The three immediately stopped and looked at their Hokage. Could we please quit it with the pointless argument for a while? There's a village to rebuild, you know. Naruto exclaimed, silencing the three and standing up straight and saluted, saying. We are terribly sorry, Hokage-sama. Naruto dropped his head and sighed. Just check on the supplies or something, the report stated that Spring Country has just sent its aid to us. Niji had cut him off, we already did Hokage-sama, and the princess gave us a letter addressed to you. The Jounin then handed to him the scroll. Naruto quickly unfurled the scroll and read it. Naruto flushed about halfway through. Apparently Koyuki had a dirty mouth about things that Jiraiya would seemingly giggle and enjoy and said things were directed at him. Now it being a letter, Naruto couldn't really tell if she was teasing or not. That and the fact that she said she never knew that Naruto was such a big fan of the Icha series. Sure, he read the books a few times, but he didn't really found it enjoyable as Kakashi had. Though from Koyuki's letter, it sounded like he was. Naruto had inkling as to who sent the letter and revised it. He made the letter the night he was about to leave, giving it to Kakashi to proofread and edit if ever he had said some awkward words to the head of state of Spring Country. Said Jounin gave a simple nod and said to leave all of that diplomat letter bullshit to him. Naruto right now was sweating bullets as his face was flushing. I need to have a word with Kakashi for this, Naruto said, unfurling the scroll further and found a storage seal. Massaging his temples, Naruto thought that he needed to teach Kakashi a lesson and suddenly putting him in a precarious situation that the Jounin would have terribly enjoyed. Oh, for the love of. Unsealing the storage scroll, he saw a signed copy of the Icha movie that Kakashi had been clamoring about 3 years ago. Naruto sighed. Yep, looks like he'll be taking a detour to Kakashi if he ever finds the man that is. I swear he's like an endangered species or something. Naruto said, stalking away from Team Guy, who had then argued again as they walked off. Naruto then flipped the clipboard to oversee any other structures that needed repairing. The paper next to his list was the hospital. There were still a lot of injured people in the infirmary, and with the hospital staff being deployed to the makeshift tents for the injured and first aid to the people that got injured in reconstructing. There he met Inari and Tazuna, who had arrived earlier, discussing about what had happened here and how he became Hokage. Some of the men and women were looking at them strangely, but mostly out of curiosity as to how Naruto befriended two foreigners and how close they were to their Hokage. Apparently, Tazuna was there because of a hangover and Inari was there to guard his drunkard of a grandfather. They parted ways when Naruto had to go check the medical supplies and then received the parchments for the approval of more aid. Naruto went through and talked to the hospital director about the received medical supplies. The director nodded and showed him crates and crates of medical supplies and equipment and stamped the approval of more incoming supplies from their allied countries. Spring was generous enough to offer a large amount of it. Checking the crates, he then said to the hospital director to take charge of any more supplies coming their way and that he should conserve them as much as possible. Nodding, Naruto thought it was time to visit the old lady, still in her coma. Coming into the tent, Naruto greeted Sakura and Shizune. Sakura merely looked sullen and continued her job. How's Bachan? Naruto asked as he kneeled beside wrinkle-faced Tsunade. She hasn't woken up yet, but her vitals are normal, we're still trying our best in waking her up. Shizune said. Naruto mellowed down as she leaned to Tsunade and bowed. I'm sorry I didn't make it in time. Naruto shouted to the unresponsive elder woman, Shizune, and Sakura only looked at Naruto as he talked, holding his head and letting his tears fall. He cursed his inability to not make it in time, he cursed Danzo for the fate of Tsunade, he cursed the situation for not being able to do anything against the Warhawk. Being the commander of Root, it took a sizable amount of the Konoha military force. Simply reprimanding the man was far too risky even for him. First Iro-Senin, not you too. I'm sorry for yelling at you when Iro-Senin died. I'm sorry for not making it in time. I'm sorry for calling you Bachan. I'm sorry for being a brat. I'm sorry for asking so much from you. I'm sorry I failed to protect Konoha. Naruto continued to bawl out his emotions as he continued to cry, hiding his eyes with his right forearm. Indeed, despite the fact that Konoha had all of its villagers and shinobi alive, it didn't take away the fact that Konoha was destroyed. Konoha was decimated in a matter of seconds. Seconds that could have been prevented if he arrived earlier. Sakura merely watched as Naruto continued to cry. Naruto was mortified of himself. It was then that Sakura saw Naruto fall apart in front of her master. For Naruto, he considered Tsunade grandmother, even a mother at times. For him to suddenly fall apart in front of her was forcing her to cry as well. She bit her lip as Naruto cried. Naruto. This isn't how Hokage should behave. Sakura shouted as she too cried. It was hard enough seeing Tsunade like this, but seeing Naruto fall apart like that as well was far too horrible for her. What do you know? Did you force yourself to make the decision regarding Sasuke? For the village? For the men that I may have stopped from sending them to war just because of him? I'm forced to label him as a missing nin. Even if I'm the Hokage, I couldn't do anything. I shouldn't even be here talking to you. Because it would just hurt you more to know that it was me who did this. Naruto shouted at his teammate. Not looking at Sakura. Sakura was silent, so he did know about Sasuke. Naruto. That's enough. Don't keep your promise anymore. Sakura literally shouted, she hated being so useless in this mess, so useless to Team 7. Naruto didn't speak as he stood up and got out. Please Naruto, don't hurt yourself because of us, Sakura mentioned, as she cried. Naruto bit his lip as he balled his hands to fists, shaking. I didn't become Hokage because I want to sacrifice my ideals like that. I became Hokage because I wanted to protect anyone that I can. I became Hokage because I knew it was the best way to deal with everything. I became Hokage so I could lead the people the right way and prevent any more tragedies that cross my way. Naruto only exited. He didn't face Sakura, with Naruto only saying, I'm going to beat him down to the ground this time. I'll be the one to pound the sense in him. I've had enough as the Hokage. I'm going to do what's right for my people. Naruto only mentioned as he went to his office. As Naruto went away, Sakura was reminded of Sai's words. Sakura, please stop whatever you are doing, you and Sasuke are the cause of his greatest pain. Sakura was left contemplating those words in the end. She couldn't say to Naruto what she had wanted to say from Shikamaru. There was no need. Naruto had already decided. Hokage's office. The events played out earlier had left Naruto mentally and physically exhausted. He never felt so drained by what happened earlier. To him, being Hokage was still an emotional roller coaster. As he looked out in front of him, his clones were frantically squirming in his office, carrying paperwork and discussing more of the needed work to be done. He glanced at his wall clock and noticed that it was nearing 4 in the afternoon. He stood from his seat and the clones quickly began stacking the paperwork around and vanished as Naruto ordered them to disperse. It was time. Calling for one of his messengers, he motioned for them to go look for Hada, Kakashi and Midogai. In anticipation for the summit, Naruto looked over his backpack and then to the pictures of the former Hokages. With a firm resolve, he hefted the bag to his back along with the Hokage's hat and stood in front of his desk as Guy and Kakashi appeared 30 minutes later with their backpacks and cloaks for the cold weather in Iron Country. Naruto then said to the two. I hope both of you are prepared for what might happen at the Kage Summit. Kakashi stepped forward and said, the Kage Summit is an event that even Akatsuki can't ignore. They would most likely try to move and disrupt the meeting and in the process, at least kill one of them. I said without hesitation in his voice, I am prepared to face them, Hokage-sama. We will defeat them without any hesitation. Naruto nodded to both and said, I chose the two of you because you are the best jounins that came to mind. I'm sorry for calling on such short notice. With a nod from both jounin, Naruto and his two escorts vacated the premises of the Hokage's office. As they went out, going to the northern gate towards Iron Country, he stopped when he suddenly turned around. The villagers and ninja alike were going with him, about to see him off. All of them lined up from left to right, shinobi and civilian, seeing him off. Take care, Hokage-sama. Please be careful. Come back safe. Ai-san, Kakashi-san, please guard him well. Naruto smiled and raised his right hand above his head into a fist, signifying his affirmation. Kakashi replied, his orange book still in his hand, Ma, we'll be fine. I nodded, Hokage-sama is important, so we won't let anything happen to him. As they walked off, Naruto, who had led the team, couldn't help but smile and a trickle of tear fell from his right cheek. The Hokage must be strong in front of his people like a rock meeting the tides of fate and uncertainty on the shore. He must never waver. Is it your dream, Naruto-kun? To become Hokage? Naruto remembered those words from the wise Sandaime as he turned back and took one last look at the Hokage mountain, his face still not carved on it. Don't worry. I won't let anything wrong happen. But just in case, watch over this village. Wind Country, Sunagakur no Sato. Ara looked up, the desert wind caressing his face as he looked back to his people who were there to see him off. Young and old, men and women. His people. Please take care of yourself, Gara-sama. Temari-san, Kankuro-san, please take good care of Kazuki-sama. Temari waved her hand to the townspeople, flapping her cloak as she said, we will. Kankuro, however, rolled his eyes and said, not like he needs bodyguards anyway. Ara simply said, courtesy call Kankuro, you know how much tension can escalate on the wrong words alone. Whatever, I bet you're the only Kage there who doesn't look like a dried prune. Replied his brother. Say that to their faces and we might have a war on our hands, Baka. And I'll call your bet for 100 Ryo. Said Temari, casually grabbing a canteen of water and gulping a little off the bottle. She didn't know why she did that, as she knew that it was such a stupid bet, but somehow seeing Kankuro lose a bet from impossible odds and seeing him eat her shoe like a damn goat. She was sold on this bet. You're on. Loser has to eat the other's shoe. Kankuro pointed to his sister, smirking at the gamble, he had this in the bag. Lightning Country, Kumagakure no Sato. Alright, everything's set, let's do this. Shy. Dairy. Said the Raikage, slapping himself with both his hands and jumped through the glass-stained window. Shy stood up from kneeling and said, not again. Hey, how much do you think the property damage that the Raikage will have to pay now? The blonde sighed as Derry scratched the back of his head and looked up, thinking of something. Well, considering how fired up he is and where we are going, I'd probably say about 100,000 ryo. Shy then approached the broken window and said, so, you coming? Derry shook his head, nah, too much hassle, I'll use the stairs instead. It's safer for me and my wallet. Shy shrugged. My fruit stand. I'm sorry, I'll pay for it. The yells outside made Shy sweat drop and said to his friend who was smirking, yeah, I see your point. I think I'll use the stairs too. Buy ceramics. I'm sorry. I'll pay for it. Shy and Derry immediately scrambled down and meet up with the Raikage before the village funds could be drained from the Raikage's rampage throughout Kumo alone. Earth Country, Iwagakure no Sato. Akazuchi. Kurizuchi. Please take good care of Tsuchikage-sama. Show them what you got. The short old man sighed and cradled his aching hip. Ah, it's troublesome for someone my age to go to meeting that far. The man said, leaning against his wooden bag. You youngsters don't understand how your hip becomes a virtual time bomb. The female of the group, wearing the standard uniform of Iwa Jounin, replied, why don't retire you then, Gramps? You can't really rely on your former glory forever. The biggest of the three, a plump man towering over the two, gave a laugh and leaned down while laughing. I'll carry your luggage of your shoulders, Tsuchikage-sama. The old man lashed out at the man and ever the stubborn old crone shouted, don't touch, Akazuchi. I don't need your help. The old man then placed the saddles to his shoulders and lifted butt. The loud sickening crack was heard that both escorts flinched at and then. Pain. Sweet mother, the pain. The aching throbbing, grinding and excruciating pain. Ooh. My hips. The old man shouted in agony, shaking from the sudden gush of unpleasant nerves, signaling he sit this one out. But what remained him standing on his feet and preventing him to fall down was his pride as the Tsuchikage. Kurizuchi, trying hard to contain her laughter, said to the old man, so, does that mean, you'll send someone in your place? The old man replied in the midst of his groans, what are you saying? I'm the Tsuchikage. Fearsome leader of Iwagakure. I'll carry my own luggage. Kurizuchi sighed and pinched the bridge of her nose, stubborn old goat. Akazuchi then lifted the old man and his luggage and then said, alright, carry your own luggage then, let's go. The old man couldn't really deny that request, besides. A free ride is all that this old man needs to ease the pain on his back. Water Country, Kurigakure no Sato. Now please take good care of yourself. An old man then handed the hat of the Mizukage to the rightful wearer. The man's hand wavering and shaking due to his Parkinson's. The others were simply amazed of this man's dedication to the village. Don't let anything go wrong. The old man continued holding the snake-ornamented staff that he held. The Mizukage replied, holding the hat on her hand and said, I swear in my honor as Mizukage, I will fulfill my duty in the best of my ability. The old man then turned to her escorts, ow, Chijuro, please guard Mizukage dono well. I won't fail probably. Said the boy holding a very large sword the shape of a dried fish on his back, adjusting his glasses, the elder replied. Don't be so humble, Chijuro, you're strong, you're a member of the seven. That why, you were chosen to guard me, okay Chijuro. The Mizukage squatted on the boy's eye level and smiled, Chijuro blushed and nodded with a smile. Ah, you kids today, why can't you just say yes ma'am, we don't need you spouting on about, I'll do my best. Be a man, Chijuro. Grow a damn spine. Ow exclaimed. The Mizukage fell silent at that as the older man ranted about his generation and then Chijuro's generation. The Mizukage suddenly had that urge to behead the spouting old goat for reminding her that she needed a man in her life since she's almost half past the prime age of marriage. Shut up or I'll kill you. She said that with venom laced in her voice. Ao looked puzzled at that and remained silent, wondering what had gotten in the head of their leader. What the hell did he do? It wasn't like he was suggesting that the Mizukage was never going to marry. Honestly, she rushes this marriage thing way too much, there were countless men after her heart, she just needs to take the time not being Mizukage and walk from that office of hers. This was why this generation was such a failure, why can't they use their own feet and eyes and be absolutely sure about what they were thinking? The Mizukage could feel the cold wind as she walked by with her escorts, wishing she had a man on her side right now. Oh, the woes of being single woman. Isn't any man interested in her? With a dejected sigh, the Mizukage walked with her escort slouching down in depression. She had hoped at least that she might find someone in Iron Country that will likely sweep her off her feet. In Fire Country. Achoo. Naruto sneezed and sniffed, a sudden chill just crawled down his spine. Brrr, it's not yet even Iron Country and I'm already shivering, I think I might be coming down with something. Kakashi merely said, nah, you don't get sick because of your tenant. Must be the air here, this area is very humid. Yosh. If Hokage-sama is cold, then I will use my chest and warm him with a most youthful embrace. Come Hokage-sama. Come feel the manly chest of Mito guy. The said man then gave a nice guy pose, complete sparkling teeth. Naruto merely shivered at the prospect and said, no thanks, I'm already fine. Just be 10 steps away from me please. Kakashi merely chuckled under his mask, thank God for it, his uncovered eye looked unflinching, the wonders of being a multi-talented person. It was then that Kakashi stopped in walking, stretching his hand slightly, Naruto stopped as well, looking to his upper right, as did Guy. Naruto didn't flinch. We're being watched. Kakashi mentioned, Naruto nodded as did Guy. Hokage-sama, I suggest you remain in your place, we'll take care of them for you. Naruto remained silent, slowly inching his hand towards the horizontally strapped Fuma shuriken strapped at the back of his waist. Naruto wondered who these people might be, Kakashi flicked his hand as quick as lightning, letting loose 3 shuriken. In a blink of an eye, 11 people jumped straight at them. All of them bearing the symbol of the Hanyu clan. Kakashi was about to dash towards an opponent, Naruto motioned for him to stop as they threw shuriken and kunai in countless directions. I'll handle this. Naruto said, as he grabbed the folded Fuma shuriken from the back of his waist and flipped it in midair, catching it by the handle with his left hand. Fuma shuriken. Windmill mode. The Fuma gave a resounding click as the blade separated and spun wildly. Naruto outstretched his hand and deflected the thrown weapon sent at him. Placing chakra on his feet, Naruto jumped and switched to Fuma shuriken with his right hand. Fuma shuriken. Blade mode. Another loud clicking sound was heard, the Fuma shuriken immediately stopped and retracted to its blade form, deflecting the sword strike aimed above his head, Naruto bent his lower body forward and kicked the man by the abdomen. The kick forced the wind out of the man as he fell down on the ground, with the blonde hitting the man with the blunt part of shuriken at the back of his neck. As he landed upside down on a tree branch, the blonde had put his hands together in a middle index cross. Page Bunshin no Jutsu. Shadow clone technique, Naruto shouted, and soon, 5 clones popped around the blonde, lunging at the men in every which way they appeared. Naruto then leaned his body forward grabbing the tree branch that he stood, used the arm strength of his left hand to lift his body upward and kick the branch, jumping straight up. One of his clones dashed towards his opponent, Fuma shuriken drawn, the clone evaded a horizontal sword slash by doing a baseball slide. Once the clone had gotten past the swipe, it used the blunt part of the Fuma shuriken and rammed it straight to the man's knee, crippling him. As the man fell, the clone grabbed the sword by the hilt and stabbed it down on the ground. The man fell down as the clone chopped the back of his neck. Who are you people? Why are you after me? The blonde shouted. One of the men said. Don't feign your innocence, scum. How many more blood of innocents will you spill in order to get what you want? We, the Hanyu clan of Wood Country, shall avenge the deaths of our clansmen. The clone had quickly caught the blade swipe sent at him. The clone blocked it with his Fuma shuriken as he then slid the flat part on the sword, quickly hitting the man by the throat. The man gasped for air as the blunt part of the folded shuriken was jammed to his neck, making him step back and stumble down. Damn you Danzo. He said between gasps, the clone's eyes widened. I'm not Danzo, I am Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto. Don't mistake me for that old crone. Naruto shouted as another clone flipped in midair, punching the man by the gut, hitting the solar plexus. The man gasped for air as he fell down, knocked out. Are you not the Hokage? Then you must be Danzo. One of the remaining men said. Naruto shouted, the Hokage isn't that madman, I'm the Hokage. Naruto shouted as he dodged a blow that would have decapitated him. As he outstretched his right foot and gave sweeping kick, the man lost balance, as Naruto shouted. Fuma shuriken. Windmill mode. Naruto said as he flung the spinning projectile straight to one of his attackers, impaling the man on the shoulders and pinning him to one of the trees. Naruto then flipped the sword away from the man as he blocked a sword straight at his face, catching it with his bare hands. Naruto then asked, why are you still attacking me? Silence. Die, scum. But that 2 people came at him drawing their hands together and intricately woven their seals together. Katen. Enden. Fire release. Fire bullet. Fuetin. Rapusho. Wind release. Violent gale palm. Cursing under his breath, Naruto dodged to the side, bringing out 2 kunai and flinging it towards the 2 men. As he ran for cover. The combined jutsu razed and incinerated anything in its path. The men were parried the flung projectiles with their swords. But was surprised when the kunai had burst into smoke. Kakashi seemed surprised at this. He let two Kage Bunshin perform henge and turn into kunai. Since when? It suddenly hit him when Naruto had summoned his shadow clones, he was surrounded with them from all sides earlier. The clones couldn't have been noticed since the smoke had surrounded the blonde. Okage-sama thinks 2 steps ahead of his opponent. Guy commented and Kakashi nodded. Just then, Naruto emerged from the smoke, dragging 2 unconscious men by the collar. The one impaled on the tree was about to extract the offending weapon from his shoulder, but Naruto stopped him by pressing his hand on his uninjured shoulder and said, "Don't move. You'll just open your wound further. Just kill me now. You think that we'll quit just because you left us to live?" said the man. Naruto didn't move as he stared at the man that was glaring daggers at the man. "No, I don't, but I don't want the people that you love to come after me either," Naruto said. The man froze but snarled at Naruto, "I've already lost my family from Konoha. Letting me live is only a hindrance. Don't you want to live?" Naruto had cut off. "Don't say that you'd prefer to die just because you failed at something," Naruto said. His anger seething as he punched the stump behind the man. "You think this is supposed to make you feel better? You think having an eye for an eye is the proper way to solve things? You aren't God to decide to end the life of people that barely even know you." The man rose defiantly and seethed at the young Hokage. "You say that your people are innocent. Don't you dare play as the unsung hero in this. It's Konoha's fault that my wife and children are dead. All because of Danzo." The man retaliated, Naruto replied as he held the man by the collar. "And you're going to do the same thing as he did? Killing innocent people left and right? Did you ever think just for a moment that you were probably on the same level as him? What was it, again? Scum?" The man stopped. His grip on Naruto's hand loosening as Naruto continued, "If you want to be another Danzo then I won't hesitate to kill you, that way, I'll have stopped an evil worse than mine." "Then why don't you kill me?" This time, the man's voice was an audible whisper. Naruto replied, "I'm giving you a choice. Do you want to live and search for a brighter future? Or seek revenge and die a miserable death?" This time, Naruto's free hand was holding a kunai. A sudden surge of information entered his mind, telling him that the remaining 3 members were incapacitated. The man never thought something like this would happen. He had thought that he was prepared for death, prepared to face Danzo to his doom as he swung his sword, but this person stopped him, made him realize just how foolish it was to throw his life away. His reply was an audible whisper. Naruto said, "What's that? I can't hear you. Speak up." "I said, I want to live," the man shouted as he cried in his answer. His wife, his children, they were never going to come back. The times where his nightmares had plagued him every night, eased only by the liquor that had been his company and his remaining clansmen. They were all that he had left, and if they die, that verge of sanity in him will vanish like a flickering match, for he will have nothing left, not even alcohol can douse that pain. As Naruto had retracted the Fuuma shuriken from the man's shoulder, the throwing star returned to its folded form, and Naruto wiped the blood away. Satisfied with the man's answer, he knew, shinobi may have been trained to kill and to treat death as normal as possible. But the fear of death was still there, it still lingers in the heart of all, even shinobi, trained and dedicated his life in that field for years, fear death. The man sat on the ground as he cried and cried out. Holding his head with Naruto turning his back on the man, walking away. "Okage-sama, we should." "It's fine, Guy-sensei, leave them, they've learned their lesson," Naruto said as they walked away. Guy was surprised by Naruto's decision to leave them be. Kakashi wasn't, however. "This is the Hokage that had trained under Jiraiya, Guy. Have you ever seen such a boy that could do that to his enemy?" "I've only heard rumors, but this is the first time I saw him do it. It's as if Kami himself willed inside him." Guy was astonished to say the least, never had he seen someone as unique as Uzumaki Naruto. Jiraiya-sama had stated once that he treated the lives of every human being as precious. He would often light candles when he got home to pray for the souls that he had tragically ended. Naruto was the opposite of that when he was a child. To Naruto, what was most important to him back then was his existence, acknowledgement. Desperation often lingered in Naruto's mind as a child. He looked on in the village with a mere complacent and hated expression. He wasn't opposed to killing back then. Kakashi knew that his first and only kill was Sasori's spy, Yura, who Naruto had driven his Idama Rasengan, great ball spiraling sphere, at the said man's chest, tearing blood vessels and cardiac muscles apart. And although Naruto had ended his training with Jiraiya back then, Kakashi saw Naruto's expression as that of regret when they had camped the night before they saw Gaara. Kakashi had wondered how much change Jiraiya influenced on the boy and the boy to Jiraiya. "Oh yeah, Kakashi-sensei, I have to talk to you about something. I don't appreciate it when you revise my whole letter to the Princess of Spring Country and chucking in a copy of the movie of Icha Icha Paradise to be signed," Naruto mentioned, looking at his sensei with a scowl on his face, forcing Kakashi out of his reverie. "Ma, don't make a big deal about it, Naruto. And thanks for letting her sign my copy." Kakashi said, kissing the movie copy of his favorite series and placing it back in his pouch. You know what just happened? Koyuki sent me a letter and talked dirty to me. And since it was a letter, I didn't know if she was teasing or if it was the real deal. You just opened a can of worms in front of my face, sensei. The worst part is you made it with my seal of authentication. Naruto answered. You worry too much, Naruto. For one thing, if she ever did those acts to you, she'll be labeled a cradle robber. Of course most of the female population older than 18 in Konoha already consider you jailbait now. Naruto stood agape at that. What? Then that means all those girls squealing at him earlier were. Kakashi chuckled under his mask and said, raising the pitch of his voice, mimicking a female's, oh, Naruto-sama was so cool back there. He's so sexy. Would he father my babies? Or so I've heard. Ah, Naruto could only say, not finding his voice to speak in the matter. I think you just broke him, Kakashi. Said Guy. Kakashi chuckled further. Oh come on, it's as if Jiraiya-sama never taught you anything about women. Naruto, finding his voice to speak again, there wasn't anything to learn but to view women's anatomy while staying hidden before they kick the crap out of you. Naruto shivered as he ran down memory lane. The misadventures with the Toad Sage were memorable on his part. Mostly because he had more than once ran away fearing for his life from the crowd of women that were carrying weapons sharp enough and threatening them to get them fixed. Jiraiya had stated once that he'll get used to the challenge eventually, as it could also serve his training in speed and stealth. The fact that Naruto could run so fast was partially thanks to Jiraiya and partially to Tsunade, who had been Jiraiya's inspiration when they were kids to get the hell out of Dodge when the time called for it. As they spoke often with Kakashi's amused tone, Naruto's embarrassment and Guy's outbursts, they got closer and closer to Iron Country. Snow began to fall gently on the ground. Naruto and the rest saw the giant gaping maw that ran on 3 different directions. The landmark seemed intimidating as well. Naruto. Naruto turned around, finding the source of the voice. Naruto saw it was Gaara. What are you doing here? The redhead asked. Naruto grinned at that, grabbing the red quadrilateral hat from his back, he placed it on his head and asked, that answer your question? Gaara seemed to smile at this, Kankuro, and Temari looked astonished, Kankuro more so. I suppose it does. Gaara mentioned with a smile. Indeed it was a surprise to see Naruto become Hokage so soon. He had heard reports that Konoha was invaded by Akatsuki's apparent leader, Pain. What was surprising though, was the fact that Naruto was the one to legitimately take the seat. He had heard bad rumors of the Hokage being a man that had ruled the black ops of the village, notorious for numerous secret deals and genocides outside of Konoha. Seeing Naruto becoming Hokage had put Gaara's mind at ease and dispelled such rumors going abound in the ninja world. Naruto commented, wow Gaara, you grew your hair a little. Yes, the works of being a Kage can be quite bothersome. That and I supposed it looked fitting for me. Gaara commented. Naruto merely rolled his eyes. There must be some mistake, there has to be. Kankuro shouted, all the while Temari was smirking at her brother, oh yeah she always did love being right. Oh, there isn't one, dear brother. Do you really think Kakashi-san would be Hokage if he didn't carry the hat? Temari asked, sneering at her brother who was grumbling as he rummaged to his wallet and handed over 100 Ryo bill. What's going on? Asked Kakashi, curious at the banter between the Sand siblings. Temari and Kankuro had a bet to see if there was a Kage close to my age. Temari won. Gaara simply mentioned. Ah, a simple game of luck eh? Then my bet to your rival Kakashi is that there is a woman for a Kage who is nearing middle age and is concerned about not finding the proper husband. Guy exclaimed, Kakashi already on autopilot said, You say something Guy. Ha. Kakashi, you and your hip ways always manage to get on my nerves. That is why you are my eternal rival. Guy shouted. The wind blew, the people were already moving ahead. Guy's head bowed as he could feel that he was ignored with his speech. Guy soon dashed back again to the group that had ignored his speech and saw that Kankuro was chewing something. Temari asked while laughing, wearing a new pair of shoes and holding her sides due to her fits of laughter. So how's the shoe, Kankuro? Kankuro replied in a deadpan voice in the middle of his chewing, like athlete's foot. That earned him a kick in the shin. To be continued. Chapter 4. Intertwine. The cold winter climate of Iron Country was a desert in reverse form. There may be trees, but there were barely any leaves in them. The fauna do not fare good as well, with a few species only existing in the harsh winter climate. In particular, only in Iron Country did exist an elusive bird known for its grace within the harsh frozen land. Its name was the snow owl. The said creature flapped its wings during midday, an hour it wasn't supposed to fly, as it only flew during the night. The said bird landed on the forearm of a rather large man with orange hair. It nestled closely to the man as the man then said to Sasuke. There's a path in the west that's barely guarded. Said Jugo. Sasuke nodded. Good, we're moving. Karen, detect Danzo for us. The Uchiha commanded. Karen seemed afraid of this however. Hey. I'm coming as well. Asked the redhead. Sasuke merely replied, your ability is required the most at this moment. Sasuke then said to the half-man half-plant. Zetsu, was it? You will tell me how Danzo looks like. Don't lie to me. Zetsu merely smiled as he walked and said to Sasuke, don't worry, I won't. Danzo is not an ally of ours. Sasuke looked up at the place named the Three Wolves' Fanged Maw. He scowled at the said structure. Soon, Danzo would feel the taste of his blade being driven to his gut. That man shall pay for his crimes. As Sasuke and the others infiltrated the pyramid-like structure situating in the middle of the Wolves' Fanged Maw, Zetsu looked around the area that will be the meeting place of the 5 cages. His single present gazed back and forth from the outer area to the middle. This is disturbing, I don't see Danzo anywhere. Zetsu mentioned. Sasuke was getting impatient. His anger was rising at the man that had escorted them in the summit. What? Are you telling me that Danzo isn't here? Sasuke bellowed at Zetsu, his killing intent was starting to leak from him as he stared at Zetsu who was starting to panic. If indeed that Danzo wasn't the Hokage, it meant that the disruption of the 5 Cages summit would lead to nowhere, as Madara had implied that Sasuke was now the important factor in revealing Tsuki no Mi, but in order to do that, Sasuke would have to be conditioned to a level that will put him in the same category as his brother, Uchiha Itachi. Madara had specifically ordered Zetsu to monitor the boy's growth, for Sasuke would be facing the Senju clan's representative, Uzumaki Naruto. His patience wearing thin, Sasuke was about to go away when he had heard that the Hokage had finally come. Staring down, he couldn't very well see the person's face for it was being covered by the hat. Land of Iron, Outer Walls. Orin, be prepared to be on standby, we will commence our operation before the summit ends. Danzo mentioned as he sat down in the hotel and watched the 3 Wolves' Fanged Maw as snow fell at an unbelievable rate. Danzo knew that the Kage Summit was a movement that the Akatsuki couldn't very well ignore. But he also knew another factor in that summit, with the way things are going, and Akatsuki finally capturing 8 of the tailed beasts, the 5 great villages will have to get aggressive and retrieve the Bijuu by forming an alliance, and being that Konoha is the only village that hasn't lost its host yet, they would definitely put the Hokage as the head of the alliance, the absolute leader. Danzo scoffed, picturing the young Hokage leading the alliance. The alliance would most likely fall apart if he leads. Danzo muttered, that was why he had set up a strategy that would allow him leeway for the Hokage to surrender his position to him. Danzo showed a glint that wasn't present before, a small smile crept upon his wrinkled face. Summit venue. The Hokage had removed his hat, revealing a spiky blonde that looked no older than the Kazukiage, as one of the people supervising greeted him. I am glad that you could make it, Hokage Dono. Mentioned the man, the blonde nodded, the remaining people inside of the building looked at the boy that stood in the middle, holding the hat of the Hokage. The rest were surprised however, they had thought that the Hokage would either be the busty blonde Tsunade, the long white-haired toad sage, Jiraiya or the elusive and shady Danzo. The Raikage walked closer and stood towering over the new Hokage who had stared at him intently as well. The hat with the symbol of lightning gave away the man's position to Naruto. Can I help you, Raikage? Naruto asked, without the suffix of dono to state his disrespectful attitude staring up at the Raikage. The Raikage merely glared at the boy. For Konoha's sake, you better speak your mind boy. The Raikage merely said, as he walked away, Naruto didn't look intimidated. Oh my, I never thought that the Hokage would be one so young and so good looking. Naruto if ever he was intimidated by the towering Raikage somehow jumped in surprise at the voice that had been said from behind. Looking at his back he saw a very beautiful woman, long red locks covered her right eye and wearing a dress that barely hid her very smooth skin on her shoulders and chest. She held the aqua blue hat that had the symbol of water. My, aren't you the cute Kage? Is your father the legendary Yellow Flash? I heard he was such a cutie as well. The Mizukage mentioned, hands on her mouth covering her mouth in astonishment. Naruto held up his hands and had motioned for the Mizukage to step back for she was too close for his own comfort. What were the sizes of those again? A B cup? Naruto mentally shook his head at the suggestive images entering his mind all of a sudden. Seriously, what was it with women and men of power? Naruto mentally asked himself, why does this remind me of what Anko did to me during the Chunin exam? And why is that kid with the glasses staring at me like he's boring holes through my head? If Guy were to initiate that bet earlier, no matter how absurd it was, he would have won as he had hit it right on the money when the woman had ranted just how much she was desperate for a husband. Up above, Sasuke looked down seeing Naruto as being the Kage and had thought of an idea. Sasuke, so does this mean we will now abandon the idea of assaulting the place? Karen asked. Sasuke shook his head and said this time, with a smirk. Someone with Konoha's affiliation must know where Danzo and the elders normally reside within Konoha, and I happen to personally know the Hokage. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki is here. Someone leaked false information from Konoha. Zetsu mentioned, fearing for the worst. He had seen the fight between Pain and the nine-tailed host. Even though Sasuke had the advantage of the Sharingan, if Naruto had the ability to attack on all sides, the Sharingan would pretty much be useless. Add to the fact that the blonde's abilities further improved since last time and destroyed the 5 out of 6 paths of pain at the start, the nine-tailed host is a dangerous opponent to mess with. Perhaps this was a miscalculation on his part. However, Madara had made it a priority that Sasuke awaken Susanoo here. But if Sasuke were to die, then it would be pointless anyway. Zetsu seethed his pride as an excellent spy was outclassed suddenly. He had double-checked the Leaf Village, but even then, the info he had gotten was scarce, it only made him cringe as to what Madara would do. Sasuke on the other hand, remained silent, intent on watching the blonde that was interacting with his escorts, Kakashi and Guy, another pair of familiar faces. You mean to tell us that is Naruto? Now this is an interesting turn of events. If that guy managed to defeat Pain, then he might cause us a lot of trouble. Sujetsu mentioned, but Sasuke remained calm. We are facing Kage-level shinobi, Sujetsu, facing Naruto or any of the other Kages should have reached to your mind that we are going to fight monsters. Sasuke mentioned in a matter-of-fact tone, Sujetsu could feel himself hyperventilating. This was something he knew that he'd face. But for some reason when that person named Naruto defeated Madara's most powerful minion, he was having second thoughts. From the stories he heard from other people, the members of Akatsuki were all S-class shinobi. Shinobi that were near or were at Kage level. Not that he was discrediting Sasuke, but the fact they were facing 5 people that had the potential to kill any S-class missing nin, it was suicidal. Sasuke may be a S-class, but these were mid to high S-class ninjas that meant business. He just hoped that he and his team would survive this, except for Karen, Sujetsu didn't like her. She can convulse to death for all he cares. In fact he hated her, the reason he hasn't tried to kill the shrieking bitch was the fact that Sasuke wouldn't like it. It would go well as long as Sasuke could control his urges, then he can live. Not much more was to be said. Below, the meeting was about to take place, as each of the delegations from Konoha, Suna, Iwa, Kumo and Kiri sat in front of the kanji that signify each of their villages. A person then sat in a separate table from them, his head supported by a wrap of bandages and his long flowing black hair covering his back. Good day, I am Mifune, the leader of the Land of Iron, I will represent as the mediator of this meeting. As the 5 Kages sat, Mifune mentioned for them to place their hats on the table, as all the Kages did so. Naruto looked around him, finding himself in the center of the meeting. To his back was a curtain with the character of fire written. Further his back was Kakashi and Guy. To his far right was the Mizukage, who was eyeing him, making Naruto pull his collar and gulp in nervousness. Next to the Mizukage to his near right was the Kazekage, Gaara. To his near left was the Tsuchikage, who looked like he had a bad tumor on his nose, and to his far left was the Reikage, whose build could intimidate anyone in the room if they were not on the same level as him. To his front, there sat the mediator, Mifune. The said man then said, now we commenced at the start of the summit. The Tsuchikage was eyeing Naruto closely and could feel himself having cold sweat. The Hokage's appearance was unbelievable. Many would consider that face in Iwa as the face of the devil that had orders to carry out to utterly eliminate them, the Butcher of Iwa, the only ninja in history to have a flea on side order if seen on the battlefield, the Yellow Flash. Very well, I'll start. Do this, the eldest of the Kages turned his head towards the Kazekage, who spoke as his hands covered his mouth. Naruto merely sat, his arms on the armchair as he watched the young Kage speak. This Kage meeting is already pointless in my opinion. 8 of the tailed beasts had already been captured. Akatsuki has already amassed enough firepower to take down any country it sets its sights on. The only way for us to counterattack this organization now is to use a massive joint military exercise before they capture the 9-tailed host. This is how dangerous Akatsuki has become. Gaara then eyed Naruto closely, who could only look in seriousness. Naruto may very well be the last target that Akatsuki needs, and although it narrows down to him, making it easier for the Akatsuki to be lured into a trap, they would most likely suffer immense amount of casualties just by guarding him. The Kazekage then continued, I sent requests for aid to the other major villages countless times, but they were all ignored except by the former Hokage. The Tsuchikage replied, this young one has no grasp of politics and such, he must be taught. Humph, if a country had its host captured, then it has no business giving other countries orders, it's an embarrassment to the village. If you had lost your host, then why didn't you try to recover it in secret? Once it's stolen you can't expect other countries to help you. That was fact. In the age of disarmament, hostilities between other countries still exist, though it waned in time. Jinchuriki were often regarded as secret, super soldiers that were only deployed in times of great conflict. Secret weapons that could trigger massive genocides in an instant, they were either the trump card or the wild card of any village that had them. Hosts would determine a make or break decision. As such, destructive soldiers such as them were rarely ever needed in a time of inactivity. Time and resources were needed to make Jinchuriki truly capable of handling their beasts. Resources that were increasingly becoming scarce for military funding as peace continued. The Hokage frowned and then asked the Elder Earth Shadow, "Then did you try retrieving them, your hosts?" The pompous elder looked at the mirror image of the yellow flash and answered, "No. The first Jinchuriki we had, Raushi, retired from shinobi duty more than 10 years ago. Since then, he has secluded himself and eluded most of my actions to retrieve him. Han vanished 3 years ago on a mission from Numa no Kuni. Han was a very dangerous subject, he was far too unstable. Instead he became a liability for the village. I couldn't very well exhaust time and money on a very unstable man. That ass. How dare that man treat hosts like they were test subjects." Naruto inwardly scowled at the eldest of the Kages. He tried to contain his anger, as a host himself, being considered a test subject was demeaning, dehumanizing. The man didn't very well understand human nature that well. He may have been old, but his way of handling things were far too merciless. Gripping the handle on his chair tightly, he mentally counted from 10 backwards. He didn't want risking war on a village that had very well remained unaffected by Akatsuki's agendas. Naruto watched Gaara as his eyes flinched a little, a sign of growing irate at the Tsuchikage as well. Naruto retained his poker face as did most of the remaining Kages. All of the Kages turned to the large man that had stood up, the gigantic and overbearing gauntlets on his arms were shaking along with his arms. The Raikage immediately displayed what he exactly felt by shattering a part of the table in front of him. Do this, the remaining occupants of the room immediately jumped, coming right in front of the table of each of their respective leaders. Weapons were drawn, fists were raised, hand seals were made, and bloodline limits about to activate. The mediator spoke, "I suggest you refrain from doing unnecessary actions. We came here to talk, not to do such barbaric things." Each of the following Kages motioned for their guards to stand down and go back to their places. Kakashi listened in closely as he had heard the Raikage about to speak. Guy had said in a low voice, "This isn't going exactly well. I didn't call all of you here to talk about the tailed beasts. I called all of you here to know where your loyalties lie exactly." The Kages raised their eyebrows in question. As they watched a Raikage who was angry at all of the remaining Kages, he then scowled as each of the Kages was maintaining their calm. However, it seemed that the Hokage was starting to scowl on his own, it was as if the tension was only getting higher and higher. Konoha, Iwa, Suna, Kiri, most of the members of that organization came from your villages, particularly Konoha. All of you and even the former Kages, your nations had been under suspicion of using Akatsuki at least once. The Raikage had shouted. Naruto had raised his voice this time, standing up in pure anger and outrage. "What?" Gaara seemed surprised as well. He did not know this, he restated it in questioning the Raikage, "Used Akatsuki? What do you mean used Akatsuki?" Naruto followed, "This better have a good explanation why you're blaming my nation as well. The Sandaime died because of one of its former members, my predecessor was placed in a coma by one of them. You tell me why my village would use Akatsuki when it was clearly invaded." Naruto was angered at this sudden revelation. Who would dare use those bastards in getting them closer to their goal? The Raikage turned his head to the Kazekage and said, "Your village council may not have told you this, but Orochimaru was enlisted to help in your invasion of Konoha. It was unclear if he was still part of that organization." The largest Kage then continued, "2 of the former Kages died as a result of that operation. I can't help but think that this was set up from the inside of one particular village." Naruto frowned deeper. It only seemed to connect to one person in his mind. Danzo. The Tsuchikage then spoke, feeling as though it is the right time to say the facts about the current situation. The great countries are enjoying a relative time of peace. They are moving from military expansion to disarmament. As tension eases between the countries, the risks of war grow smaller. But therein lies a problem, the Mizukage added. The Tsuchikage nodded as he continued. Military villages are a drain in a country's resources. With this relative peace and disarmament, what would happen if war suddenly broke out? We can't rely on ninjas that are inexperienced and untested in battle. We'd lose the war. We'd lose our prospective clients, our village would fall. Gaara seemed to get the idea of this, so one way of dealing with that was to use a mercenary force like Akatsuki. The Tsuchikage defended, it would take time and considerable resources for a village to build a powerful force. Akatsuki were professionals, they were hired for a relatively small amount, add to the fact that they showed good results. The Raikage then pointed to the water shadow and said, "What about Kiri?" Intel report stated that Akatsuki started as a mercenary group there. With no diplomatic relations to any of the countries, your village above all remains suspicious. The Mizukage bowed and said, "To tell all of you the truth, there were rumors that the former Mizukage was being controlled by someone. It could have been Akatsuki, but with no leads and evidence to point it out to them, I didn't make a big deal out of it." It was then that the Tsuchikage pointed to the lightning shadow. Other countries wouldn't have used Akatsuki if only you didn't amass your military forces. Didn't you know that you caused panic when reports of your brother being sealed with the Hachibi and another host for the Nibi? The Raikage then threatened the eldest of the cages. You watch what you're saying, you old crone, or I'll smash you with my Ain Kuroe. Iron Claw. The escorts were about to erupt again until the Hokage had spoke. Stop. Before any of you start smashing each other's fists, I'm going to share vital info on you based on the intelligence that were gathered in Konoha. I don't like where this is going any more than any of you do. But if we're going to discuss about Akatsuki, then I must very well tell you one key piece of information about the organization. The Hokage then continued, 7 days ago, my village was invaded again, this time directly by 2 of the members of Akatsuki. One of them was supposed to be the apparent leader of the group up until in the middle of our fight. I've lost consciousness and wound up losing control as the host of the Nine Tails. The remaining cages looked at the blonde whose steel gaze caught the attention of everyone in the room. The fact that one of the hosts is here meant that Akatsuki may be coming for him right now. It was a thought that many would scoff at. The 5 most powerful ninjas gathered in one place may bring Akatsuki to them, but they could only bring death upon themselves if they decide to disturb this meeting, with the Raikage out for blood and with the Hokage relaying info on the remaining members. It was foolish for the organization to invade this event. I've studied in Fuinjutsu to a certain extent, and although I'm no master, I'm adept at it. During the lapse on my consciousness, the seal placed on me activated a fail-safe program that rewound the seal. It was in this process that I met with the imprint of the 4th Hokage. The Tsuchikage paled at the mere title of the man. He told me that during the night of the assault of the Nine Tails to my village 16 years ago, he had met and fought with a man wearing a spiral mask. The same man that manipulated the leader of AIM, Nagato, was there when we had a mission in retrieving Uchiha Sasuke. The man was bearing the uniform of the organization. The Raikage in his impatience said to the blonde Kage, be quick about it, Hokage. My patience is running thin. Naruto ignored the comment and continued on, being the person here, along with one of my escorts most experienced in having encounters with Akatsuki and most of its members. I met Uchiha Itachi and said to me one name that you all have heard. Naruto then said, Uchiha Madara. To this, everyone's eyes were instantly on Naruto as he said while grabbing a book from his pocket, this spiral-masked man. The only person yet to be identified in this bingo book might very well be the true leader of Akatsuki, Uchiha Madara. I thought he was long dead. The eldest of the cages said. Most of us did as well, it's unbelievable but, from the intelligence reports left to me from one of the root members, it's been confirmed. Naruto answered. I guess he really is a monster then. The Tsuchikage could only mutter, he had read stories of Uchiha Madara, the patriarch of the Uchiha clan, the man that had said to have the ability to control the Bijuu under his will. Most of the battles that had happened between him and Hashirama were legends that were passed down from generation to generation. If indeed Madara was still alive and is leading Akatsuki, then that means that the only thing that would let them win against Akatsuki would be take him down using large numbers. To use an audacious plan that would most likely result in him cooperating with the cages around this very room. If Yun had interjected, he exerted his authority as mediator, as the leader of a neutral country. I have to say, the leader of Akatsuki has studied the current of the times very well. He used the stability and suspicion of other countries to increase his power and spread his agenda unnoticed. If this continues, Iron Country will as well fall to this menacing threat. If Yun closed his eyes and breathed in all of these revelations in one day, everything was spiraling out of control. But there's always a silver lining in this, it's rare for the 5 cages to have a meeting like this. What do all of you think? Until Akatsuki is taken care of, why don't you all form a 5-village alliance? An alliance? The Raikage asked in surprise, it seemed impossible. Naruto didn't speak, contemplating on the situation. Things were getting out of hand, as he thought. Mifune continued, the chain of command should be uniform. We want to avoid any further confusion. The Tsuchikage then stood from his seat and said. And the question now will be who will have the highest authority in commanding this new army? Mifune answered, you will only fight against each other to decide who it's going to be. Therefore, I would like for all of you to respect my decision as a neutral party, I will decide amongst you all. Outside the wolves' fanged maw. Thorin, Fu commenced the operation. Danzo had commanded as he sat down on his chair, the 2 most elite members of Root nodded, quickly sending messenger birds to Konoha. The only sound could be heard in that place was the violent howl of the snowstorm occurring outside. Konoha. Sitting beside the prone form of the goddame, Sakura had looked over her master and a sullen expression, the message that Sai left behind still lingered in her mind, as well as Naruto's gnawing at her mind every second that she could rest. Sakura, please stop whatever you are doing, you and Sasuke are the cause of his greatest pain. As the Hokage, I'm going to do what's right for my people. Shishu, tell me, what should I do? I don't even know if what I'm doing is right anymore," she asked as she hugged her knees and rested her forehead against it. In her depression, she didn't see Naruto off unlike the rest of the villagers. The thought of him and their talk earlier, those blue eyes that steeled themselves for what is about to happen. It all made it hard to bear. Is it really worth it? Getting back Sasuke here, was it really that important for Team 7? Those times that the three of them spent together were the times that made her happiest. Even though Sasuke and Naruto often argued, the fact remained that Sasuke joined Akatsuki, assaulted and captured the Raikage's brother, possibly to be left for dead. Questions then began popping up in the Cherry Blossom's head. Her thoughts were suddenly derailed when Sai had entered into Tsunade's tent and sat beside his teammate. Sakura looked questioningly at the pale member of Root. Sai was too quiet even for her, he would often show an oblivious smile and insult her, but now it was then that Sai had bowed to greet the unconscious Godame and left a crumpled paper down on the ground right near Sakura. Sakura then grabbed the note slowly and unfurled it. She read. "I am forbidden to say anything about this, but Danzo-sama is about to instigate a usurpation to power. I can only convene to you this message in written form for fear of the other members may have become suspicious of my activities. Danzo is going to kill Naruto. Please inform him. I can't do so." "Sai, is this true?" Sai could only nod once. Sakura stood from the ground and said to Shizune in a whisper, "Shizune-senpai, I need to go to Iron Country and inform Naruto of the situation before they can begin." With a nod, Shizune watched as Sakura went out, searching for team members that she may most likely need. She needed to hurry, Root was about to stage a coup d'etat. "Summit?" "What?" the Raikage asked incredulously. Naruto was wide-eyed, too stunned for words. No. He shouldn't be doing this. It was too much. His responsibilities back at the village were already hard. The mediator spoke in a calm manner, explaining his reasoning to his decision. Out of all hidden villages, Konoha has yet to lose their host. Also, to put him in the seat of power makes it an even better chance to limit Akatsuki's movement. I do not see the problem in this. If they still have their host, then that means that they are doing something right. The Tsuchikage agreed with the Raikage's outrage, but to take orders from a child. Especially that of the Yellow Flash. I would never. I'm not biased against the fourth Hokage, but a teenager who more or less took the title of Kage more or less than a week ago. The alliance would surely fall. The Raikage exclaimed. Naruto, despite the raps against him, also thought it was true. He raised his arm and said, "I'd have to agree with him, I'm still not suited to take command of such a large-scale army. I don't think we will succeed if you allow me to." If you nodded and said, "Even though that's true, your village has managed to keep you inside its walls. And you have experience in dealing with most of the members. It is best if you lead." Naruto then said, I can't take this kind of responsibility. I don't." Mifune could understand the youth's words, but then said, "A leader should set an example, is it correct?" Naruto nodded, and Mifune spoke again, "Then you are already an example to the other countries as you are the only host still accounted for. It means Konoha knows how to handle the situation, if your predecessor can handle it, then you can as well. After all, it is the next generation's duty to surpass the previous ones." Naruto remained silent as he balled his shaking hands to fists. He wanted to be Hokage, he wanted to bring peace. But if he would lead this, it meant that he had betrayed his promise to Nagato. All he could do was bite his lip in frustration and close his eyes as he bowed, wishing himself to disconnect to the world. Damn it, what should I do? If I can't find the answer, then you'll be the one to find it for me. Okay? I believe in you, son, you'll be the one to find that answer, be brave and continue down that path you have chosen. I'll always be with you. I am putting my faith in you. Yahiko's dream, my dream is now yours. Is this it? Was this the ideal peace I wanted to achieve? Peace through war. Sacrifice for prosperity. I'm betraying Nagato's trust. Damn it. Damn it. Damn it. The samurai had dashed towards the meeting, interrupting the talks of the cages as it shouted, "Uchiha Sasuke has invaded the summit." Every cage stood up from their seats, and the water shadow asked, "What is he doing here?" The Raikage, ever the ill-tempered man he was, shouted, "I don't care. Shy, Derry. We are going to take down Uchiha Sasuke." After a few minutes, everyone remained silent. Naruto then thought. Maybe finally confronting Sasuke would clear my head. It was then that Naruto stood up and said to Kakashi and Guy, "We're going." The remaining cages looked at the fire shadow whose eyes were overshadowed as he stared below. Kakashi and Guy nodded. The Raikage may want to cool off his head, but I only want answers. Kakashi, Guy, we're going to support the Raikage and the team from Kumo. With a flick of his hands together to form a middle index cross seal, 3-cage buncheon popped into existence as Naruto said, "You all know what to do." The Mizukage licked her lips, such a fine young man indeed. The 3 clones nodded as they scattered away from the side of the remaining cages. Sasuke vs Raikage. Chidori. Chirping of 1,000 birds, Sasuke mentioned dashing towards the Raikage in a straight line as the Raikage surrounded his body with lightning chakra, his chakra flaring and buzzing like an overloading circuit around his body. The Raikage then suddenly moved, stepping forward, his elbow drawn to the outreached hand of the Uchiha. As elbow and jutsu clashed, lightning crackled from the middle of the two fighters, the shockwave of the chakra forced back multiple samurai from their positions. Sasuke cursed as he jumped back, avoiding one of the Raikage's mighty fists as it came down at him like a meteor. This Chidori didn't work. Sujetsu exclaimed as he dodged a blow from Dari. He then pumped lightning chakra to the sword, shocking Sujetsu. The apprentice of Zabuza jumped back as Yuugo appeared from behind, his curse seal partially activated, his arm contorting and changing form in a grotesque manner. The gigantic man from Taka rushed towards Dari, who sidestepped and let the rampaging powerhouse Yuugo ran past him, going straight to the Raikage, who with the activation of the jutsu, instantly reacted, kneeing Yuugo in the gut and then with his strong palm, literally pushed Yuugo of his place and slammed the said man on the wall. Sasuke appeared from behind, his sword crackling with lightning. The Raikage was quick to react as he ducked below the swipe and then grabbing Sasuke by the waist and raised him up like an adult would a child. Dari smirked. Even if Uchiha Sasuke has the Sharingan, Raikage-sama's jutsu, Raiten. Yoroi, lightning release. Armor, allows his synapses to respond in the speed of light, causing his reflexes to be comparable to that of the fourth Hokage and his attacks to become faster and stronger. The Raikage then held Sasuke by the neck. He then jumped and with his enormous strength, slammed Sasuke down on the ground, causing the ground beneath to collapse as the Raikage shouted before powerbombing Sasuke. Raigabomu. Liger bomb. Sasuke was slammed on the ground, feeling the impact of the damage given to him. His head was shaking from the attack. The Uchiha was thankful he was alive by the set of bones from behind him. The Raikage jumped back as black flames erupted from the ground. The gigantic Kage watched as Sasuke struggled to get up and with a sudden burst, he jumped up and performed a Tsukiyomi towards Shai, who had used a Jinjutsu temporary blinding and disorienting Sujetsu, giving Dari the chance to advance towards Sujetsu, slashing the boy who had liquefied as his weapon went through the fanged boy that looked like a shark. Shai had suddenly fallen when Sasuke triggered his Jinjutsu, causing his left eye to bleed as did his right. Sasuke was panting, those three were strong, the Raikage wasn't a Kage for nothing, even with his Sharingan, he couldn't follow the Raikage's movements. It was far too fast for his eyes to react. The Raikage instantly jumped towards Sasuke, who had evaded another vicious punch that shattered a part of the upper bleachers. Sasuke was suddenly surprised when the Raikage could keep up with him. The Raikage didn't even seem to put any effort to it, as the large shadow said, "This is for my brother, Uchiha Sasuke." Arubo. Elbow. Thrusting his right elbow once again, lightning danced around him, Sasuke couldn't evade in time as the elbow thrust towards his chest, pushing him in a powerful force that would have stopped the heart of any normal man. Sasuke was thrown away from the Raikage, skidding and collecting dust clouds in his path, finally being embedded on the wall. Sasuke, in another fortunate set of events, triggered Susanoo once more, the bones were present again as it wrapped itself around Sasuke, stepping away from the rubble. "Get out of my way," Sasuke said, hoarseness in his voice. That fight with the Raikage was starting to wear him down. In her room. The Kazekage, Tsuchikage and Mizukage all stared on the table quietly with the Hokage wordlessly getting out to go and find some answers and the Raikage taking out all that pent-up anger on the person that had done him wrong. The Tsuchikage merely smirked at this predicament. He had believed that the meeting, no matter how big news that it was one that would only involve the tongue-lashing dished out earlier as the main action. But no, Akatsuki indeed didn't ignore this event. They knew that with the Kage's meeting, it meant that they would be faced with the 5 great nations themselves. The Tsuchikage shook his head. Such a mistake could prove to become bigger now that they decided that they should interfere. So the hawk has descended to search for his prey, only to descend in the pit of snakes. Gaara muttered as he looked up. He had wanted to come and help, but if Naruto wanted answers first, then he would follow later. Right now, Naruto wanted answers from Sasuke, and that usually meant forcing Sasuke to calm down. "Poetic, are you, Kazekage Dono?" The water shadow commented. Gaara merely looked at the woman and said, "When you can't sleep, thoughts of multiple objects invade the mind. I have them often when I was younger." The eldest of the Kages smirked as he said. My, what a passionate fool he is, that Raikage. Doesn't he know the meaning of the word, restraint?" Gaara replied, "He speaks his mind and does things on his own, impulsive yet controllable." "Humph, for a brat, you sure know how to pull the strings to this old man's temper. I see that the former Kazekage has taught you a lot, but he forgot to instill manners in you." The earth shadow replied. Another smirk appeared from the old man's face. Gaara merely stood up and said, "And you are a person who has lost himself in the title of Tsuchikage. Honor, tradition, I have no need for such petty things. In the line between life and death, manners are the least that I need." With that, the Kazakage walked away, motioning for his siblings to come with him, with Kankuro smirking as their backs were turned on to the Tsuchikage. "Yeah, that's right you arrogant prick, you got what you deserve," Kankuro muttered. "He is quite a pure one, isn't he, ow?" The Mizukage inquired to her eldest escort, the man nodded in reply, and the Hokage such intensity in his eyes as he walked away if he were only a few years older. "Perhaps it's time we interfere as well, ow, Chijuro come." The two escorts of Kiri nodded as the Mizukage stood and left towards the battle, leaving behind the aging Tsuchikage. "Very well, shall we join them too, Akazuchi? Kurizuchi?" The Tsuchikage smirked inwardly. It had been years since he had stretched his weary bones, he just wished his hip wouldn't suddenly ache at the chaos about to ensue, because from the looks of it, all hell would break loose the moment all 5 cages act in one area. Konoha. Niji nervously looked around, 4 of them were about to depart, as soon as they see a hawk landing from the direction of Iron Country, they would break for it. "Are you sure about this, Sakura?" Niji asked. Sakura only nodded. "Troublesome, only a week of rest and we're already sent on action, let me remind you Sakura, I just recovered from a broken leg." Shikamaru muttered, shaking his leg a little as he stretched his neck from side to side, all that rebuilding took a lot of work this past week. He would go crazy if that coup d'etat managed to succeed, the work that all of the people had put in the reconstruction would be wasted. "The hawk is coming closer, 100 meters from our starting point, Niji nice and no sightings of root members in our vicinity," Hinata had informed them, the Hyuga genius nodded and said. "Very well, I will be the second in command in this team, our mission right now is to inform Hokage-sama of what Danzo is about to do. We will intercept them when the summit ends, hopefully, this will end peacefully. Sakura-san, you shall be the one to provide medical support, Hinata-sama would be our tracker, since Kiba and Shino are unavailable, Shikamaru, you will be commanding officer, I'm sure you already know." Shikamaru waved his hand off and said, yeah, I know, just let me remind you that going to Iron Country would take us at least 2 days at our top speed. With the possibility of encountering Danzo, we should take a different route, it would be longer, but it would be sufficient enough for us not to be tracked down and be safer. I don't want any casualties on both sides, we're already as thin and as worked out as it is, we don't need to outright kill each other. Hinata, Niji, put your Dijutsu to good use. The hawk has just landed. Hinata mentioned, Shikamaru nodded. Adjusting the trench knives strapped on his back, Shikamaru then nodded, alright, let's go. With a flick of their hands, they jumped from their positions and into the tree branches above. Going northward towards Iron Country. Iron Country. Sasuke found out that despite having Susanoo, it was still incomplete. He could still feel the impact of the attacks coming from the Raikage, and they hurt a lot. Surrounding himself in the black fires of Amaterasu, he once again underestimated the Raikage's bullheadedness in this situation, as the gigantic man literally blasted his left arm through the everlasting black flames, with Sasuke feeling the damage of his attack, hitting him a few centimeters below his windpipe. Sasuke fell down, rolling on the ground as was met with a Raikage, prepared to deliver another attack. Jirichin Darapu. Guillotine drop, the Raikage said, as Sasuke triggered yet again, his Manjikyu Sharingan, kaleidoscope copy we lie, flaring to life as the red of his iris, and the 3 Tomo eye began to shape to that of an atom, as black flames erupted from the ground, Sasuke muttered. Benton. Kagetsuchi. Flame release. Kagetsuchi. Black flames erupted from the spaces above Sasuke's chest, 5 columns of black flame was about to swallow burn the Raikage alive, until sand seemed to explode between them. The said objects were now drizzling on the open floor. The Kazakage had controlled his sand once again, as the Raikage was flung back as he had heard a voice coming from the back. Fuinjutsu Fuukahoin, Sealing Arts. Fire Suppression Seal. Countless tendrils of chakra were shot over to the ebony fire, as the black flames that danced around Samurai and the Raikage's arm alike were swallowed into a small scroll that had the words of snake, boar and tiger written on it. The design around the area that the black fire were collected were 2 snakes as it opened its maw, and the kanji of fire written big in the middle. Sasuke looked at the jutsu that had triggered, this has never happened before. The black fire was suppressed from someone, not him. It was then that he heard footsteps, walking and in rhythm, the sounds of the sandals slamming on the floor, getting louder and louder, as the Uchiha looked on in the shadows, as a pair of feet emerged along with the hem of his haori, his voice ever familiar to the Uchiha as he said. "Hello, Sasuke." To be continued. Chapter 5. Yin and Yang. A few minutes earlier. Zetsu had no choice, to make up for his mistake in Konoha, he knew of one alternative for Madara to get what he wants and in the same process, redeem his mistake. The leakage of false information from Konoha had hurt Zetsu's pride. It had a major setback to their plans, of course, he wanted to inform Madara at least before, but it seemed the route from the area that they had infiltrated to had been guarded tight now. He could probably escape on his own, but leaving Sasuke's little troop on their own was suicide, as Sasuke might do something worthy of attention. It was a blessing though, that Sasuke was actually willing to fight the people from Konoha. Perhaps it was his blind hatred of anyone affiliated with the Leaf Village, but nonetheless, Zetsu, as Madara had been doing, would capitalize that hatred of Sasuke to suit the needs of Akatsuki. After all, one man who is blind in his hatred would need a guide to direct his anger. Madara had given him direction, Sasuke had the drive. What he needed was further advancement. So he had formulated a plan in order for Sasuke to grow strong without dying from the 5 greatest shinobi that are currently walking in this very room. He sank to the floor as he reminded Sasuke not to be seen for a moment. Sasuke's eyebrow was raised in question. Once Zetsu had appeared down below, he gave a menacing chuckle as he said with a sneer, Uchiha Sasuke is in this very building. Find him if you dare. With that, Zetsu was seemingly stabbed like an animal by the samurai as their chakra-powered blades pierced through the body of Zetsu, who, unknown to the rest, began spreading some dust into the area unsuspectingly and then. Pandemonium. Sasuke had jumped down below filled with his rage as he activated his Sharingan with the samurai already going for him. If you are going to block my path, then be prepared to pay for it. It was in the midst of his terrorizing that the Raikage had appeared, bursting with that armor of lightning. The lightning shadow came at him with ferocity of a bloodhound, nailing Juugo on the wall as his escorts dealt with Suigetsu. Although he had managed to be relatively unharmed with a few bruises and cuts along with the bleeding eyes, those blows coming from the infamous Raikage hurt like a bitch. The Raikage was fast as he was powerful, his taijutsu was completely unbelievable. The imposing physique of the man showed in battle, and although he was limited to close-range combat, that didn't mean he couldn't get close to him fast. The bout with the Raikage had proven to be more of a challenge than he ever thought, disregarding the fact that the man was willing to literally burn his arm off from Amaterasu just to nail a powerful clothesline just below his neck. He almost had the man with his new technique up until sand literally exploded in between them, with the Raikage being flung back to the area where the Kazekage was. Sasuke seemed surprised at first, but was more shocked than anything else that his black fire, the everlasting flames of Amaterasu began to move, not to his will, but being absorbed in a scroll. The black flames flickering about everywhere and burning the samurai were slowly grabbed by the tendrils of chakra and in a few seconds it was gone. It was unbelievable. Up until now, no one, in his mind, had ever stopped Amaterasu except him. He hadn't thought it was possible to do so. But there it was being sealed into that scroll. In the midst of his shock, footsteps were heard as it slowly approached the scene. Each step almost a second apart from each other, as if it was the only noise that Sasuke could hear in this room. With a resounding last step, Sasuke looked around and saw a pair of black sandals, with the black hem of a Haori. Sasuke looked up as the man's features were covered by the shadows as he spoke. Hello, Sasuke. That familiar brought a smirk to his face as he said to the man, Naruto, so you're the Hokage now, eh? Good for you. Naruto seemed to frown, something felt different about this Sasuke. It was as if Sasuke was looking at him like an amused psychopath. It seemed that his indifference back then felt different, it felt like he had one thing above all else to Naruto. Contempt. I've got questions that need to be answered, Sasuke. Naruto mentioned, looking into the evolved Sharingan eyes that Sasuke possessed. Sasuke laughed a little and said to the blonde, still the idiot, I see. I'll answer any question you might want. Sasuke then pointed to his face with his thumb and defiantly said to Naruto, if you can land a punch against me. Naruto raised an eyebrow at this and replied, still the arrogant bastard. If that's how you want it then, fine. Raikage, Kazekage, don't interrupt. The Raikage replied, outrage in his voice, what? Hokage. We should take him down this instant. We can take him down with the 3 of us. The Kazekage raised his arm and said to the lightning shadow, this is an opportune moment for us to gather information about Akatsuki and their plans. Hokage Dono wants answers. Raikage Dono, he knows what he's doing. The Raikage grunted and crossed his arm all the while saying, it sounds as if you knew the Hokage yourself, Kazekage. Fine then, I'll let the Hokage have his way with Uchiha Sasuke. He then continued, but if things get out of hand, I'll personally end this. Naruto merely approached forward to reveal his yellow sage eyes. Thanks for that, Raikage. He said, not turning his eyes for one moment from Sasuke. The Uchiha looked at him with that confident grin again. He may have wasted almost half his chakra from his last fight, but it won't be a problem now. Let's do this, Naruto. The blonde wordlessly dashed forward, cocking his fist back as he leaned his body forward, increasing his speed. The two dashed towards each other, with Sasuke closing in faster than Naruto. Once Sasuke appeared in front of Naruto, the blonde then hurled a punch at Sasuke, who effortlessly leaned his head to the side, narrowly hitting him in the face, but something of unknown force collided with his cheek, sending him flying back from the blow. A grunt of pain escaped from his mouth being thrown back from his position. Naruto merely smirked at that when Sasuke was flung back. Somehow, that felt satisfying. Sasuke didn't know what hit him. One moment he had evaded that punch, the next something rattled his brain as his face was met with something akin to a punch. He stood up. Looking at Naruto intently, his eyes didn't see that attack. Did his Kyuubi chakra activate again? No, even though it was a different chakra, he could still see it. Then, what had hit him square on the cheek that managed to break his Sharingan's predicting pattern? First question then Sasuke, what are you doing here? Naruto asked. Sasuke answered scowling, lucky shot, but I'll answer, I came here on the pretense that I was to assassinate the presumed Hokage, Danzo. Naruto raised his eyebrow at that and then said, obviously he's not the Hokage. I am. Second question, why are you targeting Danzo? Sasuke dusted himself and said, if you can punch me again, I'll tell you. He sneered at Naruto at that one to which the blonde looked impassive at, his controlled anger was reaching to the limit. You like hurting yourself much, Sasuke? Said the fire shadow as he went for his stance of his Kawazu Kumite, frog kata. Sasuke charged at Naruto head-on, his Sharingan eyes spinning faster than normal, his clairvoyance activating at an increased pace. He stopped and jumped to the side as he saw the punch about to collide with his face. But as soon as he thought he was out of range of the attack, his chest was rattled to what seemed like being smashed through a brick wall. Sasuke coughed out blood at that as Naruto, without letting up, punched Sasuke directly at the face this time, resulting in the said Uchiha to collide to one of the standing pillars around the room. Ready to answer yet? Sasuke growled this time as he got out of the rubble that had once been a column. To this, Sasuke spoke, Danzo, along with the elders, Hamura and Kaharu, they ordered the massacre of the Uchiha clan to stop an attempted coup d'etat stemming from my clan. Itachi was forced to kill every last one of them, that's why Konoha is my target right now. Every last one that subject themselves to follow Danzo and the others. Sasuke for once was growing frustrated, his Sharingan was absolutely useless against Naruto in close range, if he could do all those invisible hits at a moment's notice, Sasuke knew he wouldn't stand a chance against the blonde if he was up close. He'd resort to a different tactic then. Naruto was startled at this, he didn't know anything about the Uchiha massacre, but to him, right now, the most important bit was to obtain the information that he needs. If your target is Danzo then I'm sorry but he's not here. However, I can't let you involve others that clearly did not know what happened that night. Tell me Sasuke, why did you involve yourself in Akatsuki? Asked the fire shadow. To get what I want. Sasuke answered as he crouched down, his hand crackled as lightning began to seep around the Uchiha, dancing like crescent waves and lines of electricity wisps flailing around, the sound of 1,000 birds chirped. Sasuke. Sasuke was surprised. He could hear the voice of the blonde on his back who was now sitting on it. Do you know why the Uchiha were killed off? Sasuke let the lightning from his hand spread throughout his body, activating his Chidori Nagashi, 1000 birds current. Naruto jumped and landed on one of the supporting beams as Sasuke shouted. They were suspected of releasing the nine-tailed fox 16 years ago. They couldn't do it. The fox was a natural disaster on its own. There's nothing to prove that the Uchiha had some involvement in it. Sasuke screamed. Naruto shouted, and you think murdering those countless innocents would satisfy your vengeance? You're only doing what those advisors had done. And you say that you're different from them. Sasuke retorted, you think that I care about that? Did those advisors spare my clan's children, men and women alike? Those weren't involved. There were children in that compound that haven't even walked and Konoha ordered for their deaths. You think it would justify just to that? Just to their deaths? Naruto jumped down and dashed toward Sasuke as Sasuke jumped back and brandished his katana. Your ways of thinking are flawed. Said Sasuke as he dashed at Naruto with his sword outheld, lightning began to crackle in accordance to his chakra as lightning danced around his blade. Naruto grabbed his Fuuma shuriken and wind began to encircle around it, swirling as his chakra transformed to wind. So are yours. You think whatever you're doing would end in the scenario you want. You think through that you'll gain peace. You're just the same as that bastard, Danzo. Shut up. Don't compare me to that scum. What's not to compare? He ordered to kill every last one of you. You're going to kill every last one from Konoha. Your bastard of a brother was just the same as you are. Don't you dare speak of my brother in that way. Itachi died for Konoha. He suffered through such an ordeal just so that everyone from Konoha can enjoy that fake transition of peace. As blades and jutsu clashed, nullifying each other, Naruto and Sasuke jumped back. Sasuke was starting to breathe deep. Even then, that isn't the right way to obtain your peace. You may have killed people in Konoha, but the survivors will learn to hate you as well. They'll come for your blood. You think that cycle will end with just you delivering your idea of justice? Naruto shouted. Sasuke began throwing him kunai and shuriken that Naruto deflected as they ran sideways and clashing with their respective weapons in the myriad of columns in that building. Sasuke pointed to the blonde and screamed, "You try telling that to the graves of every last Uchiha that were murdered on that night." Sasuke threw a kunai at the blonde. Naruto dodged by jumping and landing to one of the columns as he ran up and began jumping from column to column, letting loose a volley of shuriken to Sasuke, who evaded and took cover from with one of the columns he used as a shield. "Do you even know what really happened the night of 16 years ago?" Naruto shouted. Sasuke then with his kunai and steel cable, flicked it at the blonde who jumped away. Another kunai was thrown, this time, faster than the first weapon as it ricocheted with the kunai with the steel cable, trying to wrap around itself at Naruto, who cut the cable down with his wind chakra-powered Fuma shuriken. He hid behind the columns, landed down on the ground, and immediately sensed a presence approaching him fast. It was then that Suigetsu had appeared from behind him, Kubikiri Haucho, decapitating carving knife. In mid-swing Naruto had caught the gigantic blade in the semicircle ring just above the handle with left hand. Just with one hand. How strong is this guy? Suigetsu thought. Naruto immediately pulled the gigantic sword towards him, pulling Suigetsu as well. Naruto tossed the Fuma shuriken in his right in midair and then cocked his right arm back in that midst of a second. Naruto punched Suigetsu, liquefying the boy as Naruto tore through the torrential water down to his legs. Suigetsu reformed and stumbled back. It was then that Kakashi appeared and shocked the water puddle with a simple raiten, making Suigetsu pass out. Raiten. Rimyaku, lightning pulse. Naruto turned around, Kubikiri Haucho still in his hands, and impaled the approaching fully transformed Juugo by the shoulders with the sword and pinned him to another column. Juugo groaned in pain a little, but smiled as his body transformed once again and formed what seemed to be 10 holes above his head and his sides. Chakra collected like little globules and was about to fire at the fire shadow. With his outstretched hand, Naruto formed a Rasengan before Juugo could finish his attack and slammed it on the said man's abdomen, flinging the gigantic man back with the force of a hurricane and slamming him to another wall, effectively rendering him useless in the fight. It was then that Sasuke had appeared behind the blonde. Despite his sensing abilities, he wasn't fast enough compared to Sasuke's speed. His right eye contorted and changed in the shape of an atom, signaling the activation of the Manjikyu Sharingan. Tsukiyomi. The eye contact was not to be, however, as suddenly, one of Naruto's escorts had intervened. Super dynamic entry. I had entered into the fray and kicked Sasuke by the side that was blindsided by Guy's direct flying kick to his abdomen. Guy didn't stop there as he lifted Sasuke with his leg and gave another direct kick to Sasuke, sending him skidding on the ground. "Are you alright, Hokage-sama?" Naruto nodded and then looked toward Sasuke, who was now panting heavily. Naruto's Sage Mode had deactivated, his red and yellow sage eyes fading from him as he saw Sasuke beginning to stand. His eyes had once again flared to life, turning and contorting into the Manjikyu Sharingan. Naruto could feel the chakra building up with Sasuke as it began to grow and grow, forming the bones of Susanoo, this time, managing to complete the skeletal structure on its own. Sasuke was breathing heavily. "Let's see you break into my absolute defense now, Naruto," Sasuke mentioned between his heavy breathing. Naruto had then rummaged through his pouch and grabbed a scroll from his pocket, biting it between his teeth. He had used a set of 5 hand seals to direct his chakra. Boar. Dog. Bird. Monkey. Sheep. During his training, he had inquired the Toad sages about using the reverse summoning technique. The sages scratched their heads at this. The reverse summoning was first used when they summoned Naruto for his Senjutsu training and then to his Fuinjutsu training. To them, the reverse summoning was only done by the summons themselves and that there could possibly be no way that he could do this on his own. Flashback. "Reverse summoning, you say? Well, that's a different matter, Naruto-chan," said Fukasaku, scratching his head. "Normally only we can perform it. The reverse summoning functions for the summon animal to transport the contractor to where the said animal is. The idea of summoning your Kage Bunshin with the Sage Chakra is different. You have the same chakra signatures as them, and so we can do that. But if you want to, it's going to be different from any regular summoning technique. You need some sort of guidance to do that. Yondaime Hokage, I believe, could do that by using a special seal that lets his chakra home in on that seal and then use his infamous Hiraishin no Jutsu, Flying Thunder God skill, to travel there. If you can use a seal that is somewhat of a beacon for your chakra detecting skill in Senin mode, I think it might just work," Fukasaku mentioned. Naruto nodded and understood as he began reading through some of the seals in his book that pertained to use a seal like a beacon. He came upon a peculiar seal in the book that was used when someone is lost in any given terrain. The seal would automatically light up whenever there was a corresponding seal with the same design. It acted like a messenger between 2 towns and relay the position of that said person through chakra. With Senin mode, he could detect chakras around him as long as he is exposed to that certain chakra for a period of time. However, searching for his own chakra was more difficult. Not only was the familiarity of his chakra the problem with detecting it, the problem lay in that when detecting the chakra of his clones in any location, his own chakra would interfere to know where the location of the clones was. It was then that through his brainstorming, Naruto's mind had discovered something. Whenever he had summoned any toad in time, before they appear, a runic circle appeared and crawled to the ground just before the smoke had erupted and revealed the toad that he had summoned. Fukasaku mentioned that the circle was considered the homing destination of the summoned animal or human. The normal medium on that was the contractor's blood. Naruto had then began to think, what if he modified that circle? What if he placed a different medium to the circle to summon one of his Kage Bunshin? With that thought, he went again and asked the toad sages, Fukasaku and Shima, to assist him in making that summoning circle. The toads looked at each other and nodded. It was theoretical, but it might just work. Flashback end. Naruto then opened the scroll and in it was the summoning circle rune that appears once Kuchiya's no Jutsu, summoning technique, was used. Naruto then grabbed a paper seal from his pocket, the seal that homed in on another seal, that had the symbol of the hare, for speed and travel, rat for dispersion and multiplication, bird for tracing and location, and a drawing of a spiral above the characters to activate the circle. Naruto slammed the seal towards the scroll with the summoning circle written right down in the middle. Immediately the flow of chakra went to the seal, as it began to sway to the chakra, and homed in on one random seal, that had the same design as that of the seal that Naruto had. In one resounding pop sound, there appeared a Kage Bunshin in front of him, sitting in the lotus position with its eyes closed, and Naruto said, "Dispel quickly." The said Kage Bunshin did as it was told and vanished in a cloud of ninja smoke. Naruto's eyes began to change again, going from its cerulean blue color to yellow. His pupil expanded sideways and grew a few millimeters as a red outline began to appear on the top of his eyelids. Another weird jutsu coming from you, Sasuke mentioned, as he let the skeletal form of the belligerent storm god to grab the gourd to its side and like dripping water, splashed in an arc as it threw it in the air, forming an ethereal blade made of pure chakra. Naruto was about to dash toward Sasuke until he was stopped by Kakashi, Sharingan eye staring into the horned skeletal frame of Susanoo who held his shoulders and said, "Wait, Hokage-sama, I can see that chakra is forming like some sort of coating, it's unlike anything I've ever seen before. Please approach with caution." Naruto stopped and hesitated. Sasuke sneered at the blonde, a smile forming on his face as he said to Naruto, "What's wrong, dope? Where's that bravado that you had 3 years ago?" Naruto frowned at Sasuke and then performed his signature move. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, Shadow Clone Technique. 3 clones then popped into existence as all of them began to dash toward Susanoo. The 3 clones then used the field to their advantage and hid among the pillars, dashing in a random direction per clone. Sasuke looked around, with those columns blocking his view of the Sharingan, there was no way to predict them. It was then a clone from above, with a Chaodama Rasengan, ultimate great ball spiraling sphere, prepared, jumped and headed straight toward Sasuke's position, the ball already close to the skull of Susanoo. Swinging the sword of Totsuka upwards, the sword impaled the clone as it vanished in a cloud of smoke, immediately. The 2 clones have already appeared from the side both with the same attack, as did the one above going to his side. Sasuke turned his head around to the right and let the gigantic sword swing the ephemeral blade. He had managed to hit the clone with another slash from below, but the other one had passed through his defense as the clone slammed the giant Rasengan towards the side of the storm god. Sasuke then felt his technique shatter lightly, the side of the storm god rippled in the slightest, and the free skeletal arm of Susanoo swatted the clone away like a fly. "I guess I have no choice then," Naruto muttered as he put his hands in a familiar middle index cross seal, and 2 clones popped into existence. The original held out his right hand as chakra began to swirl, his 2 clones began pouring chakra to the technique, wind rustled around the blonde as Guy and Kakashi stood back, the chakra gathered in Naruto's palm was enormous. As the ultimate jutsu of form and shape manipulation roared to life, the 4 blades that surrounded the sphere spun like a windmill, and it began spinning faster and faster as time progressed. "What are these chakra levels?" The Raikage asked. The condensation of the chakra in Naruto's palm was unbelievable even from this position. He could feel just how dense the chakra was. Ara seemed to be curious as well, the grinding noise of the technique certainly didn't help. It was like a spinning fan, the wind blades were so visible that it was awe-striking as it was frightening. His 2 siblings looked on from their aid of the samurai, feeling the same level of goosebumps coming from the fire shadow. Fueton. Rasen Shuriken. Wind release. Spiraling Shuriken. Naruto held the technique up, the winds began to grow wild and fierce. Naruto then threw the spinning chakra shuriken straight to Sasuke, who was surprised that a properly maintained jutsu like that could be thrown for long distances. The shuriken spun like a whirling buzzsaw of death, grinding and spinning its way straight to Sasuke Susanoo. The sword was then placed close to the anticipated site where the chakra shuriken would place its deadly attack. Sword clashed with shuriken as it began to fight and shred towards the ephemeral sword. Sasuke had found it hard just deflecting the said attack away with his Susanoo. It wasn't even dispersing the chakra. It was then that the blades of the jutsu dispersed, leaving behind an orb that Sasuke viewed with his Sharingan. With his enhanced vision, his eyes grew wide. Inside the glowing orb of destruction, the form of the chakra began to destabilize and the added wind chakra began to expand. The orb had hit the sword a few milliseconds later. It felt like time stood still just for a moment and then… boom. A large explosion tore through the hallways of the said room as the initial shockwave gave a torrential howl all around the area, completely shattering the wall behind Sasuke. At the epicenter of the explosion, the blast radius of the attack began to literally eat away at Susanoo as the microscopic needles of the Rasen shuriken's explosion. The intimidating stature of the skeletal frame of the storm god was starting to disintegrate as its bones began to turn to dust. It was here that the explosion had ended. Sasuke was near the brink of zero chakra reserves. He was already kneeling on the ground and his breathing became even more labored. He said between pants, "I haven't lost yet." Yoten. Yakai no Jutsu. Lava release. Melting apparition technique, yelled the newcomer, obviously female, and a stream of the said element was thrown in the air. The lava had landed just to the back of Sasuke, where the gaping hole from the Rasen shuriken was evident. It may have been Sasuke's only escape route, but it would not be possible. He would have to cross the stream of lava that was lying there waiting for him. And with his chakra levels, he would not be able to escape. Is this how far I could have possibly have gone? Is this my death? Sasuke thought as before him had appeared the Mizukage, her escorts on her side. As Susanoo was starting to collapse that attack from Naruto, and his low chakra reserves were punishing him to his limit. There was no way that he'd be beaten like this so easily. It's such a shame for a man, a handsome one such as you, to die. Don't worry before you die, I will be giving you a kiss to remember by in hell, the water shadow said, giving a wry smile at the Uchiha as she held her hands together and formed another seal. Fun. Komu no Jutsu. Boil release. Skilled mist technique, a colorless mist escaped her mouth as she breathed out, the haze of the mist littered her area as her two escorts jumped back and let the acidic atmosphere around the Mizukage and Sasuke to take place. I said to everyone not to interfere with our matters. Naruto exclaimed, the water shadow answered to him. But this is a terrorist, Hokage Dono. And I can't forgive Akatsuki for manipulating Yagura-sama, the Yonde Mizukage. Naruto then shook his head and sighed in defeat. He finally said to Sasuke. Sasuke, give up. This is your last chance. Naruto mentioned, giving Sasuke the ultimatum. Sasuke snarled at Naruto as his answer. Naruto closed his eyes as he could see that the area around the Mizukage and Sasuke starting to distort. It seemed that the last technique that the Mizukage had done was evaporating liquid faster than expected. The acidic atmosphere was even starting to actually melt the skeletal frame of Susanoo as parts of its bone liquefied and fell to Sasuke's arms, burning him. Sasuke screamed in agony, the pain was terrible. It was then that Zetsu earlier, the man that had seemingly dispersed himself from the arena, jumped in the last second, activating his Hashi no Jutsu, spore technique, and said all the while laughing, hahaha. All you Kages are idiots. You never took mind that I used this technique earlier on if any of you noticed. It was then that Zetsu had begun growing around the people in the room as they began siphoning chakra around the area. Wrong move. Naruto mentioned and immediately the Zetsu that had been absorbing his chakra seemed to petrify. He looked down and saw that his body was turning to that of a stone frog with a horrified look. The petrifying effect crawled down the spore technique. The Zetsu that clung to Naruto turned immediately to a statue and Naruto punched the brittle statue with his fists. His sage mode was partially forcefully finished. He then saw another Zetsu clone that seemed petrified falling down to the floor and then shattering. Up above, the Tsuchikage had appeared and jumped down, his hands were clasped together and saw that a giant cube that looked like it was made up of dirt around. Jinten. Genkai Hakuri no Jutsu. Dust release. Detachment of the primitive world technique. The cube then smashed below on the prone form of the Uchiha, looking ready to pass out from chakra exhaustion. The giant cube then fell on Sasuke as the area around the cube was disintegrated to dust. Naruto was about to dash to the scene when he felt another chakra signature that had suddenly appeared in the area, who looked onto his top right. Standing on the railings in the balcony, shouldering Uchiha Sasuke, was the man that wore the orange spiral mask, Uchiha Madara. Yo. Konoha. Shizune was running to find Yamato. Out of all the people that Naruto trusted next to Kakashi as a senior, it was the Anbu captain that had been spliced with the first Hokage's DNA. When she found out from Sai of what was about to happen, she ran immediately outside as soon as Sakura ran outside and headed to Iron Country. When she had found the face-plated ninja resting for a bit in a pile of wood, she immediately notified him of the situation. What? A coup? Since when? Since Hokage-sama has left. Right now, there are probably root forces stationed just outside the gates for a complete lockdown, with half of the forces of root just outside the border of Iron Country. What do you suppose we do, Yamato-san? Shizune asked. Please inform Shikaku-san, you must keep this as low-key as possible. We only need shinobi loyal under the Hokage to be informed of this, and I'll handle those in the ambu. Shizune nodded and left. Yamato did as well. What bad timing this was. Right at the moment that he and some of the Konoha shinobi had been rebuilding a district of downtown Konoha. Yamato had hoped that the members of Root did not begin their patrol already inside. He needed as much cover as possible for them to come up with a counter-strike force. Summit. Naruto glared at the man with the spiral masked man, you. His eyes narrowed as Zetsu had instantly appeared behind Madara and began infusing chakra to Sasuke. The Raikage spoke. What are you doing here, Uchiha Madara? Uchiha Madara sat down on the railings and said, oh nothing, I was just hoping for Sasuke to at least critically injure one of you. He then eyed every single prominent figure inside the room. It seems I made a slight miscalculation as to who the Hokage actually was. No wonder Sasuke wasn't able to hurt at least one of you, though I wonder, why did Sasuke not use Amaterasu? Naruto remained silent and grabbed a few Uma shuriken and 2 scrolls on the floor. Hokage, is this the person you were talking about earlier? The Raikage asked, and the blonde fire shadow nodded and said in a low voice, that's Uchiha Madara. Uzumaki Naruto, so you're the Hokage now? I can't believe you managed to throw a wrench to my plans. Tell me, how did you make Nagato betray me? The man in the spiral mask asked. Naruto glared at Tobi and said, like I'll tell you, you used Nagato, just as you are using Sasuke right now. You bastard, you used Nagato's fragile state and almost destroyed Konoha. Uchiha Madara chuckled. The rest of the Kages looked on between Naruto and Madara. Naruto then vanished from Madara's side and instantly appeared from behind. His arm phased through the masked man, as did the flowing natural energy, completely missing Madara. The punch, however, shattered the railings to which Madara sat. You sent the fox to Konoha. You managed to plant the suspicion of the elders on the Uchiha. You were the one responsible for turning Sasuke the way he is now. Madara then said, I admit I was the one to turn Sasuke the way he is like now. But, I simply gambled on the choice and Sasuke followed through, he followed me, I have no further answers to that. Through these accusations, Madara had forgotten one small detail that had been with Sasuke since the beginning. Karen was listening in closely. She was fearful when the 5 Kages had entered the same room to deal with Sasuke. She could swear that someone inside the room had been able to detect her, but she didn't pay mind to it, as long as she didn't make a move she was fine. However, when she heard of the accusations of the Hokage, she was starting to have doubts on this man. And however she saw it, it felt like it somehow made sense to her. The way he spoke to them when they were asked to capture the 8-tailed beast, the way he spoke when they were about to go to Konoha. It was as if the man with the mask knew how to push Sasuke's buttons and make him go to anywhere and do anything Madara wanted to. Madara then saw Karen and paused for a moment, and immediately, another distortion on space happened. It looked like a spiral and began to swallow Sasuke in it like water is to a drain until Sasuke disappeared. Just like before, that person is able to manipulate the time-space folds, Kakashi muttered as the rest of them could only look at Madara in an odd expression. Karen, please, heal Sasuke's injuries. Zetsu, grab Suigetsu and Juugo and get them out of here. I'll meet up with you later. Zetsu did as he was told and grabbed Suigetsu and Juugo's downed forms. Juugo, who had earlier absorbed fresh cells from a downed samurai, had reverted back to his human form after he painfully extracted Kubikiri Haucho from his arm. Now, Hokage, do you really want to know what had happened on the events that lead to the massacre? Naruto paused, he wanted to know himself. Sasuke seemed angry at him earlier when he mentioned Itachi. Could it be that the massacre wasn't portrayed as it was supposed to be? That Uchiha Itachi had gone rouge and killed everyone from the Uchiha clan? It was then that Madara spoke about the night of 16 years ago, the night when the 9-tailed fox had assaulted the village. Then to the following events that lead to the massacre. Naruto's scowl further increased. When Madara was done, Naruto shouted. Then it really was you. This was all you're doing. What business do you have here then? I doubt that you just told us a history lesson about the massacre of the Uchiha clan. That Tsuchikage had mentioned. Madara answered, ah yes, I'm just here to talk about the Moon's Eye plan. The people looked on, puzzled and intrigued by Madara's behavior. You see, long ago, when the Sage of 6 Paths was still alive, he stopped a monster of a great, near-apocalyptic proportions. He then continued, the Juubi was a monster that was the origin of the tailed beasts. The Sage of 6 Paths sealed the Juubi into his own body and acted as the very first Jinchuriki. He then sealed the body of the 10-tailed beast up on the moon, that which he created. On his deathbed, the Sage of Six Paths was worried that the Juubi shall roam again, therefore, he divided the chakra of the 10-tailed beast to 9 different beasts on their own, known today as the Biju. My plan is simple, I will collect every tailed beast there is and fuse them together and seal it in me. And with that power, I will ascend to the moon and fuse with the Juubi to project the most powerful Genjutsu, Mugen Tsukiyomi. With that, there will be neither conflict nor wars, all within that illusion, shall fall into a dream-like trance. Mikazuki interjected, you think that plan of yours is actual true peace? I shall not allow it. You're only locking away the conscious thought of every human being. The Water Shadow added, what is there left if humans can't strive for their hopes and dreams? You're just a madman on a quest to fulfill his delusions. You think that we shall let this slide by? The Tsuchikage added. Airheaded then pointed to Madara, you just want the world for yourself. It was then that the Hokage spoke, you're just pounding on our freedom, you bastard. You've got no right to talk about peace when you're the one who decided to cause all of this pain in the first place. Madara then stood up and looked at every person in the room once again, it isn't as if I'd lose if you refuse. If you don't want to start a war, hand over the Hachibi and the Kyuubi right now. As if we'd let you. The 5 Kages shouted. What do you mean hand over the Hachibi? Didn't you capture Killer Bee already? The Raikage questioned, Madara made a simple reply. No, the Hachibi escaped from our clutches, Sasuke didn't capture him. The Raikage then sighed in relief for a moment and then angered by the thought of his brother slacking off once again, shouted, that bastard. I bet he's just enjoying himself on his vacation. He didn't tell me anything. When I get my hands on him, I'll lay in Kuro his ass. Madara then said, reconsider your options. You will all certainly be in quite a trouble if you decide to not give in to my demands. The 7 Biju are nothing to scoff at. It was then that Naruto gave a firm reply, no. I won't allow a man like you to do what he wishes with the world. Your sick and twisted view on peace would never happen. I won't allow it. The remaining leaders of their respective villages nodded, Madara then said. Alright, consider this day then that I, Uchiha Madara, declare the 4th Shinobi World War. Iron Country borders. Danzo had began to walk towards the 3 wolves' fanged maw, the crippled warhawk was accompanied by his best soldiers, Torun and Fu, as the rest of his root ninjas began move and weave around the area. He looked up as he saw an explosion coming from the inside. Akatsuki has made a move, eh? The old warhawk mused as he stared into the clouds that seemed to come from the center of the imposing landmark of iron. Torun, lead Team Delta on the northern front, there are 3 exits here, I want Fu to go to the western side and I'll be here in the eastern side of the exit, we'll surround this place, the teams stuck in Konoha are on standby, once the messenger hawk lands and is given the orders, they'll assassinate Tsunade if he doesn't respond to my demands. The rest of the teams are to lock down Konoha to prevent any reinforcements in coming out to here. When the Hokage is seen, await on my command. Danzo instructed and his 50-strong root forces all divided and scattered around the area. The winter winds howled and surged in that vague afternoon in Iron Country. For today, there will be blood. And that blood that shall be shed shall be the Hokage's blood. Danzo would again dirty himself in the name of the village that he so fervently loves. To be continued. What if Naruto beats Sasuke at the Kage Summit? End here and thanks for watching my video till the end.